I gotta delete that one. How many lives did I do? Alright, so this should actually be live now. Let's see. Yep. live. Sweet. I gotta charge this up. Alright.
Yeah, I got a notification.
Sit. What's up, Kaneki? Alright. How many should we wait for? We got, I see 0. Yet there's 1. Guess we'll wait for some people to hop in. But Josuke, just in case you didn't know, so WK and I pretty much we've been messaging for like what, almost 2 weeks straight now? Maybe more, I don't know. Messaging. Just like bouncing theories off each other, right? And WK has one theory that we're gonna do like a more, I guess, professional looking video instead of a live. He found one thing, and I swear to God, he cracked the code, just like Black Clover, like straight up, or to at least Asta.
Really?
Yeah, facts. But that one's gonna be another video.
We'll see.
And then the other ones, like, man, we have some crazy ones. Like we were just talking about Asta being Jesus. I mean,
yeah.
Okay, so y'all just went way too far.
We went way too far. It sounds crazy when you start there. When you start there, it sounds wild. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
But I think that's why you're going to be here, though. You got to tell us, like, no, that doesn't work. Okay, that does kind of work, you know? He's going to be at real time, just like, no, trash, garbage, ass.
Jack, you know I'll tell you. I'll keep it straight.
I know you will.
I'm pretty sure one of the theories that we have is pretty good, where you're going to be like, oh shit, that kind of makes sense. Like, we just have to connect the dots.
Very intrigued with these movie live. That has my attention more than anything.
That's good, it should.
There's like 3 or 4 things that we have that connect, and like that we didn't even think they would connect. But it's pretty nuts. I think we've been discussing quite a few things quite a bit lately.
So I'm just having an issue with where we want to start. So I'm gonna let you like call it, WK. You tell us where to start, and
yeah, we can start where we kind of tried to yesterday, in the sense of we can kind of, I don't know where you kind of want to go with it in terms of theory wise.
Mm-hmm.
But we can just talk about the latest chapter. I know we started to try to talk about it yesterday, and you asked me what was kind of the thing that stood out to me about this chapter.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was more so the fact that the whole story of Faust. You and I have talked about this quite a bit, and I thought it was going to be Noct trying to get knowledge, potentially trying to go the necromancy route to try to bring back his brother, all that type of stuff. And what I thought was interesting is the fact that, I actually looked back at the panel before we started talking. It looks like his dad had shadow magic.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I think is super interesting is the fact that Tabata's telling this Faust story, and he kind of led us to believe that Noct was going to be the Faust to start the Faust traditions, but it actually leads back all these generations.
Right.
So to me, that was the thing that stood out the most, just me personally.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, because it was the I don't know. I mean, I'm still on board with him still being the Faust from the legend. I just think Tabata's really good at misdirection, right? He threw the whole community for a loop on the first seal. You know what I mean?
It's like this can't be saying now.
Right. So, I mean, I feel like you know, I don't even want to say how I feel right now. I just need, what do you think is going on with that devil, WK?
With
The one that he summoned, yeah.
I mean, okay, so you and I have talked about it. I personally, like, with the video that you just recently put out, I like to think it's Astaroth, because I think you and I have this kind of agenda that we kind of want to form with it, that we would like to think it's Astaroth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the more I read about, God, can't you say his name? Adremalek?
Yeah.
So Adremalek fits perfectly. But you want Adremalek. I want Samael and him to be more of the angel route, and him to go the King of Curses, and I want them to introduce archangels through that route.
Right.
But personally, I still think it's Astaroth, because that ring to me is like staring me dead in the face.
Yep.
And the whole story of killing everyone in the room whenever he's summoned, to me, is just it's just too much for me to ignore in terms of lore.
Oh yeah, big facts. That's what I'm saying. Like, so like for those in the chat, by the way, True, we're doing all of them, so stick around. In the lore, when you summon Astaroth, this dude has the stankiest breath in all of the underworld, right? So when you summon him, you have to hold the ring up to your face to bypass not dying. And so people were speculating, going oh yeah, that looks like black flames coming out their eyes and their mouths. But I mean, it doesn't really look like a flame. It looks like, if you look at poison magic, it looks more like that, as far as the drawing goes. So that's why I didn't go towards flames. But the reason why Adremalek was even in the conversation was because upon summoning in the lore, Adremalek is known to blind the people that didn't summon him. And that's kind of what happened, but I guess I wouldn't hate for it to be him, but I'd rather for it to be Astaroth, because we got that information right after about the gravity, time, and space devil, right?
Space, yeah.
Alright. Space, gravity, and time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I completely agree that it's honestly, whenever you pointed out Adremalek, it's not that it was a bad idea at all. It fits perfectly.
It does.
If you look at, and that's why I think Tabata, you and I have talked about this. He does it so well that he blends certain aspects that are kind of hazy in lore, and it's kind of it's easier to do, I think, in demonology, but he's done this with Norse, with Greek, with other mythologies, where it's, whenever the line is kind of blurred, he uses that to his advantage,
Right.
to where then you don't know where he's going to go. And he's using that here, and he uses that, I mean, every single fucking time we come across it. So it's, I think if you read a lot about Adremalek, you see what you were saying. It's just, I think the ring, to me, is the huge...
That's the indicator.
Because all of them have the relics.
Right.
Yes.
And because and I know people will go oh, that was definitely a bracelet because it fit on Nox's wrist, but you look at that demon's hands, that thing's a ring to that demon for sure. So I think we also
I mean, it kind of looks like when they summon him, it looks like he was sitting on something. I'm like, Astaroth was sitting on his fucking dragon. What are you talking about?
Yeah, possibly, because behind it looked like it had more tails. I don't know if that's just a really long tail or maybe multiple, but if he was sitting on something, I think he was just floating, honestly, but if he was sitting on something, then maybe that's where the extra tails came from.
It just, to me, it looked like he just got plucked out, and he was sitting on something.
Okay, yeah.
And he was like, who has summoned me?
Yeah.
But yeah, the first thing I looked for was, was there anything? I looked for the snake in the hand for Astaroth, and the sitting on the dragon.
Hey,
but I didn't see anything like that. So
yeah.
But
so speaking of snakes,
Sit on a dragon. What is that?
so Astaroth is known to sit on. In some lore it says dragon, in other lore it says hound, which is why in my other videos I attribute Gimodello being the hound of Astaroth, because in the Faust legend, Astaroth actually gives Faust's devils to work with. They don't really specify those devils though. But if you take the depiction of Astaroth, like that drawing of the old man sitting on like a dog, he's got like the hands of Plumede. He's got the wings of, I'm just gonna call him Wargunner because fuck that. That was the best name they could have given him. And then what's his name? Slodos. Even though he was like a castle, Astaroth has a crown. And I think that was more symbolic to that. And I'm missing one of them. Plumede. Oh, Hemodel would be the hound that he rides on. But yeah, that's the whole thing about Astaroth. What were we saying though?
Oh, and then he asked about the snake. So that was the other thing. So he also, on top of riding the hound or the like some type of dragon, he generally had like a snake in one hand.
Right.
So that was the one thing that I think that he could have, if he wanted to make it kind of obvious, which Tabata never freaking does, he could have some sort of like snake in his hand reference, or even like a snake tail. But I don't think we kind of got that, which obviously is why we're playing the whole what if scenario.
Right. So on the snake, I think it's really interesting because in talking to WK, I noticed Lucita. The first thing she got encountered by was the snake, and it's funny because I think we think that Lucita was at least in contact with Astaroth somehow, and Nate, I don't think Josuke's like by his mic right now, so I'm sure you'll hear him when he speaks.
No, I'm right here.
Yeah.
You can't hear me?
He said he can barely hear you, but I can hear you fine. That's the only complaint in there.
You said they can barely hear me?
Just one person, just Nate.
I mean, I wasn't talking.
Yeah, I don't know.
Alright.
God, what was I saying? Damn, I totally forgot. But I guess this kind of goes into, so while we're talking about Lucita, there's this whole thing about that chapter where we got introduced to Lucita. We see her drop off Asta in that like half panel, and all that. So, WK, you want to say like why it doesn't all quite add up?
Why it doesn't quite what? You kind of cut out just a little.
Why it doesn't quite add up? Like why Lucita is like dropping off Asta and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, so I mean we speculated about this for probably a good week in terms of how we want to go with this. I don't know how much you want to say on this stream.
Dude, say it all.
But in terms of
say it all, because I don't even know when the next time I'm coming back is, so go ahead and say it all.
Okay, so I mean we've talked about so the potential of Asta, or her knowing that Asta is immune to her effects and her kind of like life and magic drain. So we've talked about kind of why she would even drop him off if she did know that.
Right.
And so you bring up that really good point about the snake, which I actually didn't even think of until you just brought it up right just this second ago. And how that represents kind of Astaroth. I think that once again that's a good like a deceiving route, because a lot of people think, oh, snake at the garden, Samael or Satan, but you could very obviously attribute that to Astaroth. So, but we think that she is in contact with Astaroth, which is the time devil, which is an unholy trinity with most likely Lucifer / Satan, which we kind of disagree a little bit on that, with Belial or Beelzebub and Astaroth. So we, I think, kind of came up with this combo theory that Astaroth Asta is kind of maybe symbolic of Jesus through a number of different symbols that I think you and I will go through and bring in a later video that we'll put together more professionally.
Yeah.
But the whole aspect of it is the fact that him being a time devil and potentially helping her to, because you've talked about it many times in this stream and many others, that there's probably strife among the devils, right? Because within the Qliphoth, there's, each of them are kings of their own level, so they're not just going to work together.
Right.
And so there's a very high potential that the time devil, the Astaroth, is actually helping her save Asta to potentially work down the line. And so that where I'm kind of going with this is the fact that she may have been dropping him off to save him and potentially put him on the right path at the church, and that's why she put him at the church.
Right.
So that's kind of my thought.
Yeah.
For now.
One of the things that stuck out was so we see in the battle with Zagred, right? Zagred summons those like hellworms that eat life force, and it got Yami's arm, but it covered Asta completely, and he was just fine. And we saw like one was like attached to his arm, and it had nothing to do with magic or anything. This was just, it took life force, and Asta was fine. So
yes, it should have not. Asta should have been hurt by
he really should have.
The way that magic was described.
Exactly.
The way that magic was described, he should have been hurt by it. Not like anti-magic or no mana shouldn't have affected that.
Right. And he wasn't even cloaked in his anti-magic either, so that's not even an argument. He was holding the sword, I'll give him that, but still it was making contact. So that means that we don't have life force for Asta for some reason, which is kind of wild. But if that's the case, then why would Lucita drop him off? You know what I mean? Her biggest worry is draining someone's actual life and killing them. Mana's whatever. It's here nor there. People can get mana back through like sleep and eating. It's whatever. But let's go with Asta not having a life force for whatever reason. Why would she still drop him off? So we went down this huge ass rabbit hole, and it kind of goes back to this chapter about the space, time, and gravity devils, right? So to kind of preface like the last video I did, there's what's called an evil trinity in the Qliphoth, and it's not exactly like so. I have the picture up here. If you look at the Qliphoth, you have Lilith at the bottom with Nama, right? Even though that's a clear hierarchy, and the lower you get, the stronger the devils, there's still a more intricate hierarchy. And so the evil trinity does consist of Astaroth, Lucifer, and Belial. And so we have Space Devil for Xenon, which I call it a soft confirmation that is Belial. It's probably going to get rolled out as Satan or Beelzebub, one or the other. And then we have gravity magic for Lucifero. But then we don't have time magic. So I think this kind of pushes the fact that the devils aren't actually working together because we don't have the time one. And the only one that's left of the evil trinity is Astaroth, which we don't have yet. And he is in the lowest out of all three of them, on the lowest level of technically the highest level. So he's technically weaker. So the rabbit hole consists of Astaroth essentially battling both Lucifer and Belial, probably more so Belial at the moment, via space and time, where we are trying to manipulate things in a way that how do I want to put this? Shit, it's like.
Hey Jack, I'll be right back, bro. I gotta drop off.
Yeah, no problem. So, like, let's say if Belial goes like, okay, I'm gonna go through my space, magic. You can enter an alternate reality, and kind of fuck some stuff up. But then you mesh time with that. And the thing about time is like it's one straight line, but if you go back in time and you manipulate one thing, then you're creating another branch of time, and that's pretty much an alternate reality. It's an alternate timeline, if you want to get super technical, but it would still be an alternate reality because it's not the reality that was set on the original path. If that makes sense. So There were some things that you said, WK, on this that I really liked, especially with like the multiple Astas. I kind of liked it, but then I also liked the ascension theories from like the Golden Dawn perspective. If you want to talk about some of that.
Yeah, so I mean, we can. I don't know how much we want to introduce with that. So, the whole aspect of I don't know how far we want to go with that. In terms of the how Yuno and Noel, for instance, are able to affect the devils, right? We know that arcane mages are the only ones that are able to affect. And so I think you and I have played with a few ideas in the sense of how are they able to, like, quote unquote, ascend to affect these devils, because they have to be some level of, arcane mages.
Yeah.
And so we kind of came across something that I'll just kind of tease now, but we'll go into later, that essentially you're able to climb the Sephiroth and to kind of gain divinity, we'll call it. And I think it's kind of leading into, like, so I mentioned that I like the idea where Quan was going with the whole Aether, ether magic.
You do,
but I think this could kind of go along with that.
I swear to God, Quan doesn't theorize too much, but he hit that dead on. Quan is 100% right on that.
Yeah. And so it could go exactly along with what we're saying, in the sense of, because wind is not going to stay wind.
Absolutely.
That's just not how it's going to stay. And even if they don't, like, technically qualify it as, just like his wind magic technically hasn't changed as he's gained these forms from these different Greek wind gods. But in essence, his, like, spells have changed in the sense of, like, gaining divinity towards, causing damage to these devils. And you could say, oh well, he got the, what do they call it, the dregs of the mana from the ultimate magic from Licht and everyone that was around that area. But in all reality, it's been teasing that, and I mean, Noel just harmed. It's been teasing that both of them have been gaining divinity in a sense, and being able to, like, cause harm to these devils. So I mean, you and I have been playing with this idea, and so I think that climbing to Keter to be able to harm them via some divine wind or water magic kind of fits the bill pretty well. Now, in terms of multiversal stuff, I think in terms of, like, wormhole stuff and multiversal stuff, you and I have thrown back a lot of ideas in terms of how he would contain it, because time, like you mentioned, whenever you change time, it creates this whole just cluster of alternate realities that is hard to kind of contain as a writer. And to be honest, as a writer, I wouldn't want to introduce so much. And so honestly, we're not, I mean, like, I'm not totally on board with the whole, like, Julius being evil type of thing, but we talked about him potentially being, linked via this time magic type of thing. So it might be that he's potentially not intervening at certain points to not cause so many alternate realities where it causes so many issues, because like we talked about, there's so many possibilities of alternate realities, and maybe, like, Libby and Asta are alternate reality versions of each other. So maybe Julius did not intervene in all these different times because he would cause more harm than good.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger conversations we had, is how, exactly like you're saying, and I think Julius even says, like, he didn't learn until later in life. Like,
I think I lost you, Jack. I think your mic went out.
Oh, did my mic go out? No. Can you hear me? YOLO. This is...
Mine's still lighting up.
Oh, you're still lighting up? Let me make sure
I just got disconnected.
Can you hear me now?
You're not lighting up on Discord anymore.
What is this bullshit? Hold on. Let me see. Damn, son. Oh, well, they said they can hear me in the chat. WK can't hear me. That's the thing.
Still can't hear you quite yet.
what is going on then?
Take this small commercial break to enjoy that. Your beverage.
I'm sure I think they can hear you too.
Try to disconnect your mic from the end of the mic and then the end from your computer.
I ain't disconnecting shit. It's you. It is you, not me. Let me see. I'm messaging WK right now, chat. Hold up. Okay. Let me. Okay. All right. I sent WK a message. I'm gonna go back in the chat because I know there are some questions in here. All right. So.
I might hear you on YouTube, but they can't hear you on. I can't hear you on Discord.
This is wild. Can you guys, really quick, before I do the questions, you hear WK, good. Okay. So I'm going to have him turn on his YouTube then, since Discord's being a bitch. Hold up. Okay. Alright. I'm going to go back. I sent him the message. Alright, so...
Okay. I guess they can hear me, but I can't hear you. I guess I can. There's kind of a lag.
Just going to be talking over each other. Alright.
For some reason, your audio is not on Discord. That's why, for some reason, it's not lining up anymore.
Why has it got to be mine? Why can't it just be yours? I'm perfect. Let me see. Let me turn this shit off. Hold on. Turn off game. WK.
Oh, not mine. Okay.
Alright.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you on YouTube. I'll put it up on my phone.
Alright, just use... Oh, but we're going to be delayed and shit. This is crazy. YouTube is whack. Okay, so John, what's good? Glad you're here. Nate, I see you there. John, Astaroth, they do say in some lore that he rides a dragon. In other lore it says he is riding a hound. WK, can you hear me? Sounds like you still can. Alright. Ryu, glad to have you. You said, do you guys think Morse has the time devil with him being able to literally speed up the growth rate of the Qliphoth? You know, that's actually a really good point. That's a really good point. I wouldn't
hear you, Jack.
I wouldn't
But I can. I'm on the YouTube now.
Oh, there's gonna be hell of a delay. But we'll just have to hopefully it's not too crazy. Okay, so Ryu, I don't think so, because if he did, I don't think he'd have to refer to the knowledge of the past queen to do that. I think it was just like something he added to the actual ritual to speed it up, and not necessarily time. I'm dying on this hill, this Belphegor theory. I'm dying on this. I don't think it's been completely disproven, but it's getting there. It's looking more and more whack. All right, Astari, do you think Tabata will introduce angels? Of course, he's already alluded to gods. So, angels.
You will die on that Belphegor theory.
I will. I will die on that Belphegor shit right now. And it says, since some of the devils in the Qliphoth are fallen angels. Okay, so that's one of those things. So Lilith and Nama are actually really not... They're not the greatest focal points to what we're going to get opening the Qliphoth, because Lilith and Nama were both the original beings on the planet before they became demons. So their existence is a little bit different than fallen angels, if you understand what I'm saying there. But as far as the angels go, I'm thinking Tabata's going to make these angels part of like the Greek pantheon, more than likely. It depends. We'll see when Samael comes out, or Gemelec. We'll see what he goes with, because if he goes with Adremalec, I feel like he will definitely use like Raphael and all that. All right, WK is still trying to figure this out. He's gonna try some stuff. I'm gonna keep answering some questions here. Nate, you're wondering if rot is the true nature of Libe's anti-magic? Could lead to Asta.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. This is going to be super delayed.
Oh, that you just answered that? Yeah, this is gonna be delayed as well. All right, so if rot, I don't know, because does magic rot? You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know about that. Let's see. Someone said Golden Dawn. If you hear Golden Dawn in this, it's definitely going to be referring to the philosophy of the Golden Dawn, and not the one in the series, but Aleister Crowley's Golden Dawn.
I mean, we saw Ash decay magic. That's kind of something similar.
Yeah, but it didn't really negate magic, I wouldn't say. Machicula's took down what's her face? That fodder queen chick, Lolo. Decayed her thing, but I still think that's different from anti-magic, though. Asta anti-magic can destroy time. Okay, so that actually leads into some good stuff. Damn, I really want WK on this, because... God damn it. Let me... I'm going to do this one last question, and I'm going to try and get WK to just take over answering some questions he wants to answer on here, so I can try some stuff on my end. But erasing the reality of the devil... Oh, no, that's not what it is. Asta, anti-magic can destroy time, maybe. Yes, absolutely. I have a feeling that, like I said in almost all of my videos, that Libe is what we're going to have as Satan in this series. So he would be absorbing, instead of light from Keter, just the anti-version of that, which in this world is anti-magic. Satan lies below, at the lowest with Moloch. You see on the picture here, Lucifer and Belial are even inferior to him. So for him to be able to break down all three of those ultimate magics makes sense to me. So I think that pushes that agenda even further. So WK Broku, what's up? I'm gonna see if WK can answer some questions. I'm gonna message him really quick, because he's got some excellent theories. Like I said, I've been talking to this dude for maybe 2 to 3 weeks straight, like every day, just back and forth. Hold on. He's got like one theory. I was like, dude, I fuck with this dude so heavy, because he completely debunked Asta with just like, he started down this rabbit hole, and we kind of help each other like figure out some other stuff down the road. But I just messaged him, so hopefully he'll start answering some questions while I figure out whatever's going on with this audio. This is such BS, guys. I'm sorry. Where is WK? If you believe, clap. The fuck? Look at your messages. What are you doing with your life, WK? We need some eyeball magic. Look at Gen chat right now.
Okay, so I guess I can go through and start answering the same questions that you did, Jack?
Go for it. I don't know if you can hear me.
This is going to be super delayed. Oh, God.
No, answer him right now. You have no choice.
Okay, yeah, I can't hear you because I have the YouTube up to my ear while I'm doing this. It's about 10 seconds delayed.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess one of the first questions that I saw. Let's see. So Morris has a time devil. So this is actually one of the I had one of my people on my Discord message me this like soon as the chapter came out. And I actually really like this idea because he did seemingly like when Noct was basically like, oh, we have all this figured out. Oh, it's kind of like time just kind of shifted. While I like the idea, he has the same mark as Dante for one. Two, I don't think it was purely based on time. I think it was because if it was based purely on time, I don't think he would have needed to extract the knowledge from Dolopeshka. Now, you may say, like, well, if it's gravity, then why the hell did he use gravity to extract the knowledge? That's a valid point. I think that's more so Morris's magic that got amplified by the devil magic instead of, the devil magic itself. Just like we see the blood magic get amplified and the bone magic, the blood magic, and the body magic get amplified via the devil contract that they have. I think Morris has a similar thing where he potentially has some level of extraction magic, and it's getting amplified via the Lucifer type thing. I think the reason that he has the marking is because Lucifer is a like king of hell, and I think that's the reason that potentially he has a marking whenever the Dark Disciples didn't. And you notice that the only other one that we think is in the top 3 of the like Kings of Hell is Belial / Beelzebub, which is in Xenon, which I don't really remember ever seeing his Dark Disciples. I could be wrong. I need to go back and look at that. But I don't ever remember seeing any of his Dark Disciples and whether they had markings or not. But the only ones that we kind of focused on are the Magiculas. And Magicula and like Jack likes to say Vanicula, and I didn't really see any, so I think that may be why we're getting a marking, and I actually don't think that the Time Devil is in Morris, but I mean that's a very valid thing, but that's just my thought on it. I probably played that out way too much.
Talk that shit.
Yes, so it depends on what kind of angels. I kind of align with Jack on this in the sense that I think some of them will be introduced as kind of fallen angels, like you mentioned, especially Samael. If I kind of so I think if Samael was the one in the Qliphoth that they introduced, I think that would be an absolutely amazing way. And then there actually is a panel that I shot to Jack that someone was asking me about it on TikTok. It's the panel that Charlotte, they were showing her. Oh my God!
You hear me now?
Oh, thank God! Yes, I can hear you.
Let's go. Yeah, the foreshadowing on that color page, right?
Yes. So Charlotte has that picture of what looked like cursed her, and so I sent you that picture, and we kind of talked about it just a bit. But I know you and I have been both busy as hell over the last 2 days. Mm-hmm. But the potential of having that fallen Archangel of Samael and that making its kind of rounds into introducing, like Raphael, Uriel, like even Michael and Gabriel, like that would be a dope introduction. You've talked about this in terms of like the elves kind of played like a temporary part in the Separat, and they're not like what they're actually supposed to be. If that makes sense. So I think that would be a phenomenal way to introduce archangels, and then you leave the whole like God arc for another way, like another day.
Right.
But I think that would be an amazing transition, because you could talk about Samael feeling, pissed off because he essentially got shafted in the sense of it, and being like kind of in between everything.
Yeah, I feel like that story would be super dope because, yeah, like you were saying, Samael definitely did get shafted. He just wanted to bang devil bitches, and and God was just like, nah, but you can still work for me though, and he did, and that's kind of wild. So that story would be dope.
And I actually like the whole idea of Magicula has this like weird appearance of, and then like we postulated whether it was female or male for a long time because it kind of has a female outline, and I kind of debated this with some kids on TikTok for a minute whenever I first started, but in the sense like you don't know whether it's a woman or a man, and you look up on the actual like Black Clover wiki and no one fucking knows. So if it fits in the whole aspect of, because Samael, like you're saying, after he's going to fucking demon bitches, God was like, okay, off with your nuts, castrated him, and was like, okay, now things have changed. And that to me has like a weird aspect. I just kind of posted about it not too long ago, but that has like a weird aspect to kind of fitting all of it. But it just kind of fits and the whole aspect of like being the serpent that like tempts Eve, and like the king of curses, like that's the curse of humanity. Like it fits, like it fits so well.
It does fit him pretty well. And if that is him, I do wonder like if he is going to keep renaming some devils, and this Lilith and Nama thing was just like, that's it, because that's like the beginning of almost any story. So I wonder if Magicula will be, and I kept putting out there like the halves of Lilith and Nama are probably the other half of Samael and God, what's his name, Asmodeus.
Right.
And without getting into that super incesty story, because Asmodeus is the son of Lilith, and it's so wild. Like, how did people live back then? But anyway, if that's the case, then, and I was just telling these dudes, I don't know if you heard it. It was while we were all fucked up on the Discord, but that Lilith and Nama might not be good focal points as far as like what we can expect from devils. Just because they're separate beings. They weren't angels, they weren't devils to begin with. They never really fell. Well, technically they did, but they were different beings entirely. So I'm looking at these halves of them as another way for these devils, Asmodeus and Samael, to reproduce, and also more so related to the context of the story. Almost like a union of sorts.
Right.
And
that would be super interesting, because it would be like a super swerve by Tabata saying that like, oh look, here are these two that look like twins, oh but they're not the twins, and then saying like, oh they look like they're gonna be twins to each other, oh psych, they're not.
Right.
That would be, that'd be super, because isn't he like the sword of Astaroth, I thought?
He's the sword of Samael.
I can't remember.
The sword.
Okay, I can remember who. Yeah, so that would introduce a whole another level of. Oh man, like it depends on how deep you want to go. I mean, you and I talk about it like 10 layers deep, but I mean like.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Let's kind of bookmark this right here. I want to look at the chat just in case we got like questions on here. Why does everyone think Xenon Zevil is the Space King? I guess power of deduction at this point.
Yes. So I've actually had a couple of people actually comment on my TikTok actually asking me about this. So they were essentially saying, because that first panel that they introduced, I think Noct is talking about their devil powers, and they're saying like blood and curse warding magic, and they have body and gravity magic, and then with his specifically, they say like the inverse, to where it almost makes you believe that space is Xenon's magic, not. And so I think I had a lot of people that popped in initially, especially now that like the anime is about to end, that thought and still think, which I mean, it would be yeah, like you're saying, like it's deduction. It hasn't been stated at this point, but I think it's going to be one of those like twists that I think everyone sees coming. That it's like, oh,
yeah,
guess what? His magic is not bone magic; it's spatial magic. But
right.
I'm just gonna kind of point you to the fight with the Boreas, basically.
I mean, it just. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like, okay, let's put it this way. Are we really going to have one big name devil and then two devils that don't really mean shit to the Qliphoth opening the gates? I feel like it would be the evil trinity, which is established, Lucifer, Belial, and Astaroth in this. And I mean, for a community that has been dying to get an Astaroth, they're really against this Astaroth stuff right now. But yeah, I don't know. I guess he doesn't have to be the space devil.
Yes. Yeah, so it's like you're saying, it doesn't have to be, but it's more so it's one of those things like deductive reasoning.
It's what we have in the story.
Yes, and so it's one of those things that it's. You and I have talked about this whole grimoire with each of them and using them at different points, and what magic is what and when it's activated and all that stuff. I think that kind of got debunked in the sense of when they activate their grimoire, it's a certain type of magic based on their fights, because it's not based on, because there's not two grimoires to use.
Right.
So you can't use that in terms of you like for you going further and saying that it's not spatial magic. Now, there hasn't been anything explicitly said, but it's almost like the elf arc, where it's kind of like walking you into a point, but it's not explicitly telling you, like the whole Patry being not Patry, or licked not being licked, rather.
Right.
But you don't know exactly until it, like, smacks you in the face, and you're like, okay, yeah, now we know for sure it's stated right here on this panel.
Sure, yeah. And I guess to better answer this question, too, for Zoldyck, is just that we have to use what we're given. And Xenon's devil hasn't been named. There's obviously going to be a big reveal. So I just don't see why it would be hidden, and then for this devil just to be like, nothing. And then for them to give us this information that clearly has 2 out of 3 types of magic that are kind of broken at this point. So I don't know. I when making these theories, you have to use contextual clues, combine it with lore, and then come to a happy medium. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I mean, that's all the time I want to spend on that question, honestly. What does it mean? So could it be that all the ruling devil kings have the same marks for their hosts, and Morris is the host of the time devil? I don't know if I understand that. Do you, WK?
Okay, where is it? I kind of got caught up in this one, and then I followed it down.
Nate says, could it be that all the ruling devil kings have the same marks for their hosts, and Morris is the host of the time devil? So I guess like each ruler of the Qliphoth has that marking if they're in a contract with a human, I think he's saying.
Yeah, so in terms of like all, I think he's asking, do all 3 kings have the same marking?
Gotcha.
And so like that's the case. If that's the case, then Xenon wouldn't be, because his is the different marking.
That is true.
I personally wouldn't agree with that, just because we think that Xenon is one of them.
Yeah.
But I kind of see where you're coming from in the sense that they all have crowns.
Because Asta has like a crown too, kind of.
Yeah, and that fits into your theory. My thing is, I think if they did all have crowns, they would be slightly different, kind of like Asta's, where his is almost like, we talked about like the crown of thorns type of thing. But I think since it's almost exactly the same, I think it's almost like Lucifer is so strong that he's like distributing his power to his disciples type of thing.
Yeah,
and
it's pretty
it's so powerful it shows up on Morris also.
Yeah, I think what's pretty interesting about Lucifer. So okay, I feel the need to clear this up every single time. So the Satariel, the one that you see in this picture right now where it says Lucifer, that's Lucifuge Rofocal. That's not Lucifer.
You and I have talked about this quite a bit.
It gets people running around, and this is why we get another devil with like another variant of Lucifer. It's like okay, if you have the American military with a commander, Commander Bob Saget is, his true name is Commander, and then you have freaking some Asian army where it's Commando Asta, whatever. Asta's his true name, but his title's Commando. It's the same-ish title. It's for the sake of this, it's just different positions. So I just want to say that. But the where was I even going with that? I just spazzed out for a second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you had to correct me on that one day, so I think you just went on autopilot with that one.
I just ready to go. No, I think I was just looking at John's comment. So Princess of Hell Moloch would be the closest to the king of the Qliphoth. Yeah. And Moloch shares that space with Satan.
Yes. So we will probably touch more on this later. Personally, I don't know how much we want to talk about this currently. But I know Jack has a few theories. I think Broku's touched on it some too. I've touched on it a little bit on my TikTok. But the potential of Libe being the son of Licht and Tetia, the one that died.
Right.
And so that whole line of reasoning leads to Satan and the Satan-Moloch whole twin theory. So, yes, you're correct that Moloch and Satan are kind of the head of the head. And that kind of leads into what we were talking about in terms of, like, strife in, like, devils fighting devils. Right. So that is a great question. But, yes, not many do actually know about that, especially the people that comment on a lot of my stuff, that Moloch will be ahead of Lucifer.
Oh, absolutely. I want to backtrack because I know why I went on that rant. So we were saying why Morris and Dante have these crown-looking markings, right? And so if it is Lucifer just putting magic into multiple hosts, the thing about Lucifer himself is, in lore, he's got 3 faces. So I think that could be a part of it. Another thing why I think this is just misdirection, and one is Belphegor, and the other is Lucifero. I swear to God, Tabata's going to have to kill me to get me to stop this.
He's going to be like, this devil is Lucifuge, this is Lucifer, and this is Belphegor, and no one can tell me any different.
No, he's going to have to put like a little subtext at the end of the chapter saying, fuck you, Jack, it's not Belphegor. Like, that's the only thing. And
oh, God.
So, when Lucifer is summoned, so I have the translation of the Red Dragon, right? And when Lucifer is summoned, he has vampiric traits. So what we see Morris do with that, God, what's her name? I'm just gonna call her fodder, Lolo Pachica. What we see him do with that, I think that is Lucifer's magic, more truly. And in, like I said in another video where we talk about like how Raya explains how Morris has Lucifer, he's the exact reflection, and they have similar powers, but Lucifero's dives a little bit deeper than just magic. That's what I meant to say.
That's actually a cool concept, because I like that whole idea in the sense of a lot of different things, but some of them don't quite line up. But you and I have talked about the aspect of the true Qliphoth and the Sephiroth actually having 2 attributes.
Right. And
so, like, the aspect of the true Qliphoth, that we're opening up the Qliphoth right now, that they might have a physical attribute, like you're talking about, like they alter like true physical things like space-time and gravity,
right? Like hard physical laws,
and the inverse. Yes, and so like right now we have like probably some type of like hellfire and hell ice that then they might have some type of mental aspect. So you introduce the whole nightmare aspect. Yeah. But you could actually introduce, and I have the Belphegor theory that I'll probably introduce sometime soon. But I think that whole aspect is actually a really cool idea, in the sense of then whenever you introduce archangels or gods, or like Norse gods, wherever you want to go with it, they can actually have 2 attributes and then both be physical and mental. But that goes with the whole like extraction that you're just talking about, that could be some type of like metaphysical or like mental aspect that's different than just the gravity, and that would be like holy hell, like what the hell are we facing right now?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Trying to see the chat. Looks like they're just kind of shooting the shit back and forth. Let's see. How strong would Nox have been had he been able to make a contract with Lucifugis?
I like this question. I saw it when it popped up, but we were answering a couple other questions.
Yeah, you can go ahead and answer.
I'm trying to scroll through these questions and keep track. But
do you want to go
I think he would be. I mean, it really depends on what the hell is going on during the contract, because I think you and I have talked about this. That it could be a million different things. But if that's just his presence, like we think it is with Astaroth, and it really is time, holy shit! Like he would be insanely overpowered. I mean, think about like him just being, especially like I think I'm just like you're standing on this Belphegor thought. I have this theory that he will be able to fucking multiply like Voltron.
Wow.
Combine all four of his devils.
Whack thought. Nope. No whack theories in here. No, I'm just kidding.
I think that he gets Gimadello back, and he combines like freaking Voltron, and he's able to get he's able to do some nasty shit. I think that whenever if he were to ever make that contract, he would have been stupid overpowered, because he would have been. I mean, if you think about being able to use all of those kind of characteristics together, that would have been insane.
Yeah,
but also I think. Like they said something about him being able to use like Morgan, which everyone always slaughters me on my videos in the sense that I say names wrong, but I'm assuming it's Morgan. But if Morgan says that he was stronger than him, and he had light magic, which is said to be stupid or like OP, then I mean Noct is OP to begin with, so I think he would be just ridiculous. Dude,
with how smart Noct is, imagine if he could manipulate time to some sort of extent. Like, I mean, this whole verse would be in trouble, honestly, I think. Noct is already trouble with just, like... Okay, let's look at, like, Gimadello's one of his best devils. I think it's the best devil he's got right now. He's got the attribute of pack. And while that's cool... It's not really much considering what we have as far as devils, you know what I mean? So, and he makes that shit look so good. And especially with, like, I think his lamest one is probably Slodos, just because I'm not a defense type of, like, whatever. But, he still made it look
like it's needed,
really good.
You don't, like, you just,
Yeah. So imagine if Nox had an actually applicable... extremely offensive magic power. Like he this whole verse is done, I'm telling you. Let's see. What else is on here? Morse has the same marks as Dante, so Lucifuge would make more sense since he has this for alright, John. There you go. Spin. Alright, let's see. Commando, we going back to Nam? Yes. Are you saying Lucy and Lucifugis is more of a title? Yes. That's why multiple devils of... Okay, so let's talk about the names. Let's talk about etymology really quick. We were talking about this, WK, where the next seal is going to contain a devil named Baal. Now, Baal, its literal translation means lord, husband, owner, master, and all that stuff. Now, the thing is, Baal in lore actually goes by many other names, Belial being one of them, Satan being another, Lucifer being another one. So, and Beelzebub.
I had such a hard time finding stuff on Baal, dude.
Dude, because it's wild, and other devils go by Baal's name. Baal Berith, Baal Fagor, Baal Zebul. It's all over the place. So, the thing you have to remember about devils is that, especially the fallen angels, is that they started off in heaven. The reason why most of them fell is because they added an aleph to their name. And all this does is give them authority, more authority than they originally had. And so when they were found out, they were cast out. And so for taking authority, essentially. So they're not going to stop just because they got kicked out. They're just going to keep doing it. They're living in a world with no rules. So, yeah, that's why I believe this whole Lucifero, Lucifuges, like, is just renditions of the hierarchy, and we're going to eventually get to Lucifer, who, as I've said in previous videos, I do believe Tabata is going to make, instead of Satan, make Liebe Lucifer, but that is probably one of my more unpopular opinions here.
I mean, I actually really like it, but it's one of those things that it's either right or it's not. It's very much like it is what it is, and it's one of those things that, like, whenever you play with theories, they're gonna be wrong probably a lot of the time. Like, anyone that gives you a lot of flack, it's just kind of BS.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just us playing fun with the lore and trying to piece things together, and you know, just trying to make everyone think a bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
But in turn,
go
ahead.
No.
Well, in terms
I
of,
said go ahead first. No.
I know a lot of people are talking about. I'm trying to scroll the chat on my phone, but I don't know how delayed it is. He said, "Who doesn't want to bang yellow chicks?" You know.
That's what I'm talking about. Lilith look like a whole snack right now.
Yeah, they really did put that panel in the last one where I was like, damn, Tabata gave her the fucking money shot. So I know Jay from my Discord is asking about horns. So I know a lot of people have actually talked about, and it's something that we actually haven't talked about, because I think it's been talked about so much in so many videos. I think Broku broke this down like to the T for like 20 minutes. So I think we haven't talked about it too much in terms of why Asta has 4 horns. And maybe we talked about it just for a bit.
Yeah, it was just like a very small conversation. Yeah.
And we're worried about too many crackpot theories instead of actually trying to explain things that we've already seen. In terms of his 4 horns, what would you maybe how would you maybe explain these 4 horns, and maybe you and I could both talk about this?
So this is where we started talking about the origin of Asta. That's how it got kind of glanced over. But I personally right now just attribute it to Weg, just because once we got Xenon and all these Zogratis siblings 100% forms, they all have extra horns too. I will say that between the 3, they do look different, and Dante's horns do look more like Asta's horns, but I still think it is due to Weg. And if we take the relationship between the siblings and Asta never had a limiter on his devil, whereas the triad had limiters, and once the seal was broken, then we got the extra horns. So I say it's Weg, but Broku did come up with that super dope demon hybrid. Yeah, I totally fuck with that. That can be an option, absolutely.
Yeah, so I liked that theory, and I think a lot of it somewhat kind of goes together with a lot of what I was thinking. But one of the main things that we've talked about that kind of explains it in a different way is maybe something that we don't want to quite tease here. But it's kind of something in between. But I will say that before Jack and I kind of talked about this and kind of formed this theory, personally, I kind of sat somewhere in between the aspect of maybe it is Weg and maybe that it is just Liebe's potential. So the only time that we see Liebe out of his actually grimoire and in his true form is in the Dark Garden Shadow. It was the Shadow Magic Dark Garden Invitation or whatever that we learned this past chapter. Now I will say that when we learned about what we learned about this last chapter, it heavily nerfs any devil that's present, right? Now, we also have never really seen Liebe actually try to kill in his like true form. Like whenever he was fighting Asta, it was said that like, you know, with his ki, he wasn't actually trying to kill Asta. He wasn't really going serious. And like in my mind, if we see, you know, like we have these two conflicting thoughts of the fact that, well, is Libe an actual multiversal aspect of Asta, or is he actually, the son of Licht and Tetia, and he has this really high potential to be a high-level devil, which, if that's the case, he's going to develop a second set of horns, right? So whenever he goes, like, berserk, like he did, I think that he might develop those, and we just see those at certain times. It's kind of like, not to drag another anime, but like when Goku was going full Super Saiyan, when we saw like small little trinkles of it, or like other animes where we see just like small little bits of power, and that could have been with the whole eyes thing, where they're kind of trinkling it in. And I know there's certain aspects that kind of contradict some of the statements, right. But it's more so that if these are my kind of two conflicting thoughts that might explain both of them. That might not be a devil hybrid, but that may be. Still is a very viable option, in my opinion. And kind of what we have actually talked about is kind of something that goes along that line. So I'm not completely writing that off anyway. So
yeah. Still looking at this chat. Someone said I wouldn't mind Liebe and Asta being Astaroth. Thoughts?
So I actually kind of teased this on my TikTok a while back. I kind of started in January, but it's felt like a year from now. Now the whole aspect of like the ending of one of the OPs, it was like 11 or 12. They had the whole aspect I've shown you, where I even tried to like break down the lettering of each one, where it almost kind of spelled Astaroth, but it was kind of like jumbled up. Personally, I don't think that's where he's going, Tabata. I initially kind of thought that Black Clover might be the origin story of Astaroth, and he would take his place in Qliphoth by like making a deal with Lucifer, or Satan and Moloch, by taking the place where Astaroth is in the Qliphoth at the very end. And that's kind of like his story, his like origin story of Astaroth and where he takes his place. But I think where they're going isn't quite that. I just saw that in like the first aspect of my mind, in the sense that I didn't really, and I still don't really, but my thoughts have kind of changed. But at the very beginning, I didn't see them winning at all. And I like I said, I kind of still don't. But I saw Asta maybe making a deal with Lucifer and maybe the Kings of Hell, that they leave Earth and he stays in the Qliphoth and becomes the Astaroth of legend. I don't really think that now, but I can see why you think that, because I thought that initially as well.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Okay. So then we got another one from Nate. So then, is there a devil above them who's giving them those titles? That's actually interesting.
You could probably speak more on this. Is there a devil? Is there a Qliphotic version of the Ein Safar? I actually don't know.
So
that
I came across something. I forgot what they called it though. It's not the Ein Safar, but yes, essentially yes. Yeah. And that went into my whole Zagrid tweet. And okay. Why Zagrid's formless and all that stuff, and why he has soul word and it's just labeled Kododama. Oh my God, Zagrid might be different, but yeah, that was the the concept.
That's super interesting, and it fits into the whole like multiversal aspect. But at the same time, it's I know a lot of people, like I at the very beginning thought that he was going to potentially reference Dante's Inferno with the whole aspect of, you talked about the three heads. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, what if the three heads are potentially at the very end, they're going to like take this body, blood, and bone magic and just fuse them all together and have like 6 magics and be this super overpowered demon or devil and just be like just overrunning everyone.
See,
and I don't think that's where it's going now.
Yeah.
But I really like that thought initially.
You know what? I haven't said this one in a while. I think this was like my very first theory on the triad as to why they're chosen as hosts. And it goes all the way back to chapter 1, like most shit does in the series. And where facts, dude, Tabata like dropped gems everywhere in chapter 1. So Renchi's about to kill Asta. Dude, I should stop reading and trying to talk. What was I just talking about, dude?
You're talking about Renchi trying to kill Asta.
No, like, what were you talking about before I even... Oh, the triad. Okay. So, Renchi was about to kill Asta, then kill Ino to take his 4-leaf grimoire, right? Renchi says he's going to sell that grimoire on the black market, which is crazy because just not even too far out, we find out that grimoires will disappear completely if the mage it belongs to dies. So he knows of a way to keep it alive, and someone that he's selling it to knows how to actually use it while it's separate from the owner. So we have to remember there's a whole black market of super rare grimoires. Now, my thought was the triad has been doing this for, like, trying to get their plan together for a while to make sure it's a successful advent, right? So as these devils come out, Zagrid kind of set the tone as to how badly they need, or not need, but more so want a grimoire to become more powerful. So my thought was they're using these guys to give them flesh because...
To try to get 5 leaves also. Interesting.
Right. So I don't know where the grimoires are going to fit in necessarily, but as far as the triad, like their actual magic goes, I think that's why it's possible that Lilith and Nama right now have forms because all of their body magics are playing a part into this advent. So they have blood, flesh, and bone.
Interesting. So you don't think it's just them opening up the Qliphoth and them just walking out? You think it has to do with their hosts?
I would think so, but then a counter argument to that is the fact that Liebe got yeeted out of the Qliphoth, and he was in full form in the Qliphoth and out of the Qliphoth. So that's just a counter argument there already. So
I mean, Liebe can kind of get,
and Liebe's different.
I feel like he's different. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in chapter 1.
That's an interesting thought, though. I've never thought about that.
So I hope that is the case, because I'd like to see these devils get grimoires and this whole verse get fucked, honestly. But let's see.
I don't know if there's enough. I'd see the aspect of, even if they were to snatch a whole bunch of 4 leaves, right? They would potentially need to have the users, unless they have like some really back alley way of just like making them into 5 leaves. They would potentially need to have the user go into despair, which you have actually talked about. You think that humans are actually different from elves, and like they actually have to, like, they might be a different aspect of, if you know when to into despair, it would be different than like Patry going into despair. So they might not be making a 5 leaf.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's enough 4-leaf circulating to supply all these devils.
True, but we also
that brings us to a whole other point of, in terms of like, can you pass the 5-leaf? Like if Nama had a 5-leaf that was working, and she was and he was using it, or Lilith had one and she was using it, or it, whatever you want to call all these devils as, some are androgynous. Could they be like, oh, Lucifer's out, he's the big bad of now that's been released, can I just hand him that? You and I were talking about that in terms of,
oh yeah,
how does all that work?
And then we ended up hitting a wall, because like we don't even know what the 5th leaf means still. Like when Zagrid got Patry's, he didn't use any light magic, so it's not that he's getting the magic of the person he's jacked it from. He's just getting more power, like more access to power.
Or even like the language. Is the language based on the devil? Because the devil is not based on how they despair, it's based on the previous user. Right. So like if Zagrid snatched a 4-leaf from Yuno or Patry, then how would it be any different between the two? Because he's not, like you're saying, he's not using any attribute from either of them. So would it be any different? Could he just like be like, hey, Moloch, Satan, whoever it is, take this 5-leaf. I don't need it.
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean that would be something that devils do, that just kind of pervert the laws that are set in place,
Yeah, and that would be a cool way to introduce the whole aspect of like someone being lower in the ladder but trying to take over. Like if Astaroth got a 5-leaf, but he's lower in the Qliphoth, but wanted to like overthrow, and he was technically stronger because he had a 5-leaf.
Right.
then he would have like this whole, like it introduces this whole another aspect of like, because they have the aspect of like having a host versus having a body versus having a grimoire. It's
Right.
like levels. So it could introduce like some cool aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Noct, do y'all think him surpassing his limits is him using all 4 devils at once rather than switching between them? Possibly.
Yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't rule it out at all. That'd be sick. I think it would be like the best test for Tabata to bring all of those forms together in a coherent way.
You call it what?
In a coherent way. I think that'd be a massive test for him. I think he'd do it just fine, but I'd be curious to see how that turns out.
Yeah, or you could just call it Voltron, Defender of the Universe.
Bro, if he goes the Voltron route, I'm out.
Oh, man. Yes, I actually do think so. I think that he hasn't done it so far because he potentially has had the 4. And I may be completely wrong here, just like any other theory. But I think potentially he has the aspect of combining all 4. And it would be kind of cool to see the aspect of like having a defender, because they all have different aspects, like each of the forms tend to, like, the whole aspect of like most shows, manga, anime, whatever, they have most of their forms are just like kind of +5 and every attribute type of thing. And Tabata has this cool way of doing like the whole like mermaid form was basically like a speed thing and like fit in the whole like monozone and the whole like mono method, and like it fits the whole aspect of the story. And I thought it was really cool in terms of even the Boreas, like he needed something to break through the defense of the bones, and so he needed this like hella attack boost, and it didn't really do much of anything else, maybe a bit of speed, but it wasn't really focused on anything else. But it's more so like these forms are focused on the need or the necessity of something. And I really liked that aspect of it. And these forms that he has with these 4 devils are kind of, they seem like he's already gone through this, kind of like Yami has gone through his past protagonist whole transformations type of thing. But I think it would be cool if he introduced this whole aspect of like if he had all 4 of them together, and he could, I think that would be the only way that he could actually run through any devil, because right now he's getting absolutely washed.
Oh yeah, I mean, this was the biggest miscalculation in just BC history. That was such a wild jump in power. This is why I do believe like there has to be strife in the underworld, and that Astaroth is working for the humans via Julius, but they need someone from the inside to help them out, because the power scaling is going to go crazy once the next seal opens. It's almost game over with Lilithanama for Noct, at least, and they're just playing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're not even using it. I mean, we like think that there's another magic in play, but they obviously have said that like, oh, don't finish this too fast. Like, we're not gonna actually take this serious. Like they're gonna wash him if they take him serious, So,
let's see.
But one thing that I will say, if you go the next, I don't know if this is the next where you are. John and Jay both have said something to the effect of Astaroth hates the other 2, and Astaroth isn't really hostile to humans.
Right.
So
that's
if you want
absolutely true.
On them.
Yeah, dude, Astaroth thinks he was unjustly punished. He doesn't believe he belongs there. He actually reveres himself as a type of god. And for any of you that did like a quick Google search, you know that the correspondent is Astarte, which is an Egyptian goddess of justice. So with this parallel, he doesn't really fit where he is. So it would only make sense that he's against this ultimately evil agenda. And this goes into like some philosophical concepts like the banality of evil. Like there is probably no why as to why Belial and Lucifer and Moloch down there want to come out and just cause ultimate harm to everyone, because evil at its base is just boring. It just is. But Astaroth, being parallel to goddesses like Astarte from Egypt, shows that there is some altruism within this demon, and there's actually a description of him that, or not specifically of Astaroth. They don't say Astaroth in this description. They do say the ruler of, I hate saying his name, don't make fun of me, Gogsabla, is kind. They're known for spreading themselves so thin until they break via their kindness. So, I mean, if that sounds like a devil to you, I don't know what a devil to you is, because that's not really a devil. So I do really believe that Astaroth is on Team Black Clover here.
Yeah, and for sure, like it's I think I read a couple of passages that said something to the effect of like he tends to associate himself with humans way more than devils, and he like just in terms of like human affairs much more associates himself with those. So,
yeah, and
I think it fits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he loves like shooting the shit with humans too. Like one of his descriptions is just like,
oh yeah,
you know, if you ask him a question, like, sure, let me tell you about it. You know, regarding
that's if you survive the stinky breath.
Right, you have to have the ring on your face.
Like breathing through the silver ring. Yeah.
So he'll answer whatever questions, and he actually knows about the creation of everything and the fall. He knows about everything past, present, and future. So,
which exactly plays into our whole thought with the whole time magic,
right? Because
it's not like we're just pulling this whole time magic out of our ass in terms of like he fits, because the unholy trinity fits perfectly. Mm-hmm. That it fits well, but the whole like him having knowledge of the past, present, future, and whenever he gets summoned, he just loves to talk about every thing between you know time of creation to right now.
Right.
That plays perfectly into the whole time aspect. So exactly. That's, if you're just joining the stream, that's kind of where the Astaroth time thing is coming from. Both of those aspects, not just kind of like we mentioned this earlier, the whole like we try to blend lore and
context from the series.
What we're, you know what I mean? Like, yes. So,
and like, if we just talk about time, not even talking about BC or anything like that, just talk about time. Time has no beginning, no end. Which means if you have that magic and you're in a position where you're pretty much the antithesis of a god, pretty much, you do in fact have access to the very beginning of creation to the fall. And you have this information which gives you that knowledge and the wherewithal of how you want to position yourself in the grand scheme of things if you want to prevent this fall, let's say. And we kind of talked about how if there is a battle between, you know, let's just, instead of using the three, keep Lucifer out of this for now. If we talk about Belial having space magic and Astaroth having time, and they're trying to battle it out, then Astaroth would have to battle they're kind of fighting against fate as the third party. You know what I mean? And if you've ever seen like the butterfly effect from anyone in chat or anything like that, you know the whole concept of a butterfly effect is you go back in time. I kind of went over this earlier, but and you I think it's like kill a butterfly. It sends a ripple throughout time in the future, and it makes drastic differences. Killing that one butterfly could create a category 70,000 tornado. You know what I mean?
We started talking about all types of time. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I mean, and this kind of goes into the multiple Asta things, which I kind of wanted to get back into, like what we were talking about a little bit earlier, where so I don't know if it was today where I dropped it was yesterday where I dropped, I think Asta is actually a golem, and he's
we talked about it for a few days now.
Okay, yeah, dude, my days are blending so much.
Yeah, no, for sure. We talked it's like 2 a.m. here, and it's probably 12 over there, and my days have kind of blended together too with the work, so it's fine. I didn't know if we wanted to tease all of that quite yet. No, it fits very well in terms of with the whole, like we talked about it earlier, with Joski, with in terms of life energy and not being drained, with Zagreed spell. Man, I don't know how deep we want to dive into this, but in terms of the, do you want to talk about the like whole Adam Jesus parallel? Is that where you want to go with it?
Yeah, as long as it falls short of your whatever.
Okay.
You're fine that we initially started talking on.
Okay. So the idea is the sense that there's a lot of like key moments in Black Clover that Jack and I think everyone, I mean, I don't know who all is in this. We're kind of making our way down through this chat, but there's a lot of key moments in Black Clover that I think we all try to analyze, and they're very huge moments, and I think that we can break them down in lore. And one of them is Asta not losing any life to that, you know, whatever word soul magic, the Kodadama magic that Zagreed summoned. And there has to be a very specific reason why he wasn't losing life to that. And it wasn't sucking mana out, it was sucking life magic out. And there also, it ties into the whole aspect of like why Lucita potentially dropped him off at the church. Because she could have potentially also known that she actually, because she's not really, I mean, you touched on this earlier, Jack, that she's not worried about, you know, potentially draining his mana, because mana recovers, and who knows, I mean, you may actually have the potential of like, if your mana is drained over time, it's like muscle memory to where then it's like, who knows, you could actually, you know, maintain some level of mana. And it's like, as a mom and how we see Lucita with Libe, like, she probably isn't just going to give him up for mana. It's most likely either some life or death situation, or the whole, she was afraid of draining his life. But most likely there had to be like something happening that she was seeing. Like, she wasn't just going to leave this kid there because it was like, oh, I think I'm going to like drain his life energy, so I'm just going to leave him there. Because there's a potential that he has the same magic or curse or whatever she has, and he would be immune to it. So who knows? So we think that it more so aligns with the potential that she dropped him off there for a very specific reason, not because she was afraid she was draining his life. And so this kind of plays into the whole aspect of the Kododama stuff.
Right.
So there has to be a reason that he wasn't getting drained. You can kind of take it from there, Jack.
So this kind of goes into just creation story, and if you guys read my tweet on Zagreed, you kind of see where I'm going. But a lot of creation stories involve creation via fiat, which means you speak it to be. Like, first day God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. So in a lot of creation stories, especially Mesopotamian, which I find that Tabata kind of dabbles in. It's not super heavy though. People are made from clay. And then in the philosophy of, I believe it was the Golden Dawn or the other one, I can't say the name of because then it goes into you're fine. But
it's hard to toe the line.
But they believe that making a golem is almost like the ultimate alchemical process you can go through, and to the point where it's taboo, because golems can ultimately become too strong to control, and thus wreak havoc on the world. And I was thinking that Lucita, for some reason, if she belonged to a certain group that we'll get into in the future here, created this golem in order to liberate the Black Clover verse, and in order to get life into, because remember, Lucita can put things into and take things out of other things as long as they lack mana. Now, if she could put, I went all over the place with this. I started with like the swallowtail, right? I think it was like if you place the swallowtail inside of Asta, give him life somehow, because the swallowtails are the like representation of how the Qliphoth work, not the Qliphoth, but the Tree of Life works, and how it was made is all those little spheres that you guys see on the stream right now on the trees are spheres that the Ein Sophar, or God, filled with light. And then at the fifth sphere, Gevura, it broke. And it kept breaking like 10 times because God couldn't get his shit together. And then created the Qliphoth, and then they finished the Tree of Life. And I even talked to UWK about like what's his name, Lumiere's Swallowtail breaking was symbolic of that moment of another sphere of the Qliphoth being what's it called, broken.
Yeah, like the shells of the, yeah.
Right.
Well, the whole story of the Sephiroth and like the forming of the Sephiroth, what was it, like the fifth one that broke?
Different, yeah.
And like that led into the Qliphoth formation and like that I mean that all made total sense, but you have to understand like even the formation of the Sephiroth to like kind of understand where you were going with that, which it's pretty depth. Like it's pretty in detail.
Yeah, I this is one of the things I kind of hate about Black Orders, because it's like when you talk about one thing, you have to understand like everything else behind it.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of sucks, and you inevitably go down a rabbit hole just trying to talk about something, which is why I always forget where I was going. But
yes, absolutely. We go down rabbit holes every single.
Right, exactly. So, but you brought up a point where, because I was trying to figure out, like, so how would Lucita get a soul inside of a golem, right?
Yeah.
And there was talk of, like, working possibly with Astaroth to some extent, and then also putting life itself into it, which is an interesting concept. Because, I don't know, it's one I think we have to just flesh out as the story goes, especially with the Dryad showing us like the origins of souls and stuff like that. It seems like they are linked to Mana. But then again, we have like Asta, who does definitely have a soul. He just doesn't have life energy for some reason.
Yeah, and see, and Tabata kind of complicated it even more with including Mana, because we talked about this quite a bit in terms of the soul and Mana. In this, we'll call it the BC verse. The soul seems to be tied to Mana, and Asta's is not. And there's a reason for this, and we have like that kind of ties into our other theory, but like there's obvious kind of clues in that, in the sense that there, like, there's something kind of going on here that you and I are trying to look at. But there's this soul, I feel like, is kind of a hot thing for shonen series for the last 5 to 10 years. Yeah. And I think Tabata's kind of doing it pretty well.
Yeah, he is. Dude, we were just talking about how masterful all this shit is. I've never seen another writer do things like this. We have...
Yeah, Tabata is good at world building, that a single panel is causing us to theorize this much. Yes, like, so Jack and I will send each other a single panel and then talk about it for like 2 hours.
It's
and like, it's... If we had a word limit, we would hit it.
Well, absolutely. God damn. There's one in here that is asking, can Yuno reverse the effects of the Qliphoth and instead open the gate to the gods or other worlds? He did use it to enter the Shadow Palace. Now, I do have a thought on this. So, notice that the Heart Kingdom came, right, with Patri. But there's no Veto, there's no Fauna, and there's no Raya. Now, if we look at where they would be on the Tree of Life, they directly connect. I think, Raya's at Bina, and then we have Fauna, I believe, at Gevura, and then Veto at Hod, if you look at the screen. So they directly connect, and I think it's possible they could be working with the Dryad, because if we look at the Dryad, the lore behind Dryads is that they are spirit/guardians of like trees, and if we needed William for his tree magic, what's his magic called? It's not just tree magic, is it?
It's world tree magic.
World tree
spells are use yourself.
Right, there you go. They needed his world tree magic, and then combining it with Yami's dark magic to pervert that light, that natural light that it has. So the Dryad,
I see what you're saying.
In Elysia, if we take this as Elvenheim, which I believe this is the interpretation for Tabata, then the top of the tree is right in Elysia, which is the tree the Dryad is stationed at, essentially, right? So I think they could be using her to potentially reverse this, because we see the power scaling is going to get crazy. And even if we do get one devil that's like against everything else, it's not really going to help in the grand scheme of things, especially when gravity and space start coming out. Like, there's just no way we're competing against all of these things, because gravity shuts down both time and space. So once Lucifer is out, it's over. So we need more, and I think that's what they're doing, because there's no reason for Raya, Veto, and Fauna to not be there right now unless they were doing that, I feel like. But as far as reversing the effects, I don't know about that. I would say if anyone does anything with the Qliphoth, it's going to be Sakurai. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's almost like ultimate magic to almost sacrifice yourself to seal everything.
Yeah, and
I will say that Roku had a thought in terms of using Demon. I don't even remember all the different names. Demon Destroyer. That's the third sword, isn't it? Demon Destroyer sword. That's a decent thought in terms of. I liked the fact that you could use that sword, and Gosha's elf had that line that I kind of even forgot about. That he said something to the effect of like, you're using it and you don't know the consequences. So I think that's a good thought.
Yeah, he posed
he did use that.
Yeah, he posed the question like, you think it'll really have no consequences? And
yes.
And for me, I personally feel like that was more leaning towards like what we saw him save Patri with, where he had to go through all of the pain and anguish Patri went through, and that is that's a huge drawback. Like, not a lot of people will recover from that.
Well, yeah, for sure. Like he could have you and I have talked about this in terms of like Asta's kind of fortitude in his own character.
Yeah.
In terms of, because we talked about like how kind of strong he is mentally and like where he was going in terms of kind of with our other theory, but the aspect of, I don't think anyone in the series could have really gone through that and come out the other side the way he did. Because of his just overwhelming nature to just want to save everyone. Because, I mean, really the only other person, maybe two people, I guess Noel too, but he looks up to Julius like a god, you know what I mean? And so the fact that he just found out that he killed Julius right then and there and forgave him and was like, I'm going to save your ass whether you like it or not. I'm going to drag you out of here kicking and screaming.
Exactly. Like, to be able to empathize in that kind of moment where he's like an essential demon, and after a devil just escaped with his grimoire and shit, like, he kept it together really well, and not a lot of other characters can do that. So I think that's what Gash's Alpha was referring to, honestly. But it could be more. It definitely could be more. And
it also, to me, it could be in the whole aspect of like, I've kind of teased this with you, but we haven't talked about it too much. And the whole aspect of like splitting his soul type of thing with the whole multiversal aspect. Because even with our multiversal aspect, something had to happen with making Libe. Now, that's a whole nother conversation itself that we won't even really get into now. But that's an interesting concept to me.
It is.
In terms of
I ended up liking that one. I ended up liking that one a lot, actually. That'd be really interesting, but that'd be super hard to write, honestly.
Yeah, like it would be a huge mess. Like, I imagine he would have like, you talking about having a Qliphoth and a Sephiroth whole wall. Like, you would have a whole, like, we introduce time travel and multiversal type shit.
Yeah,
you would have a whole house full of notes.
It would,
like,
at that point, Tabata would literally be Charlie Sheen in that GIF where he's like, conspiracy theories. He's like, yeah, this is it. like that's how you write this, and it's just like a bunch of like strings going everywhere. Like, yeah, there's no clean way of writing that, honestly.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are actually worried about it in the sense of like, oh, how do you keep time travel clean? And I mean, it's hard. I mean, you read a lot of time travel stories, and you're like, oh man, like, this is plot hole city right now.
Oh yeah.
And I have faith in Tabata, like, just because he's pulled so many things off. I mean, just like with the whole foreshadowing knocked in like fucking chapter 2 and like he foreshadows things like every other day that you look at 100 chapters later and you're like, holy shit, like, how did he pull this off?
Oh yeah.
But like at the end of the day, you just have to have faith. And you and I like the series. We'll analyze the demonology and like the mythos of it, and just have fun with it, and just let them tell a story.
Oh, facts, absolutely. Here's a question. We've never talked about this, and it's something I always glance over. I never really give it a thought. But Eternal Beast was saying, didn't spirits stop time when they first met? Can she do that again, or is it a one-time thing?
I don't know. I think it was almost to show the speed at that point, rather than like actually stop time.
Yeah.
I think it's a valid thing to point out, but I think it's one of those things that like as you progress in the series, like speed accumulates.
Right.
I think at that point it was more so just to show
because no one was like
God, he's on another level.
Yeah.
Like speed blitz the shit out of him.
I mean, I'm not like a scalar guy or anything, but I don't think anyone was reaching anywhere near like FTL or anything like that. So, yeah, I think you're right as far as that goes. But I will say this: when I was first introduced to the name Zephyr, it was when I was playing Castlevania. God, I don't even remember which one it was. But when you get the spirit of Zephyr, you can stop time. So that's what. So for a long time, I thought of like, oh, that's probably what it is. But then when you actually go into lore, there's nothing about time attached to Zephyr outside of Castlevania.
So, I've actually been meaning to read more about this, but I like the whole idea. You've talked about the ley lines stuff with him, and I think Quan has talked about the whole Aether thing.
Right.
I really do think that the one that's going to get the speed out of all of this is going to be Yuno. I think Yuno is going to be just like the embodiment of wind itself, and like the I think the Aether thing hit it quite on the head in the sense of he's just going to embody like the medium of how things travel in itself, and like the ley lines thing right on the money as well. So I think that maybe that's kind of a foreshadow of like what it's going to become, but at that specific moment I don't quite know if it exactly stopped time. I think it was just more so to just show you context, because there was a lot of stuff. If you look back, I think I watched this not too long ago because I actually watched that whole little section to do my Protonium video that I did not too long ago. But I think it was just to cram so much information to you so quickly, and to show that he was speed blitzing the holy shit out of everyone. Personally.
Yeah. Yep. Dude, I will always praise Quan. This is the only time I will praise Quan, and then after that, it's all slander. So, like, he was so dead on with Aether, because you guys that have been on the channel, you guys know this. Like, when I went to the whole Morningstar thing, Lucifer is actually parallel directly to Zeus and the whole Aether thing. So, it's...
Breath of the God.
Yeah, and you can tell. So, I made a preemptive tweet. There was 1 week where we got one of the devils or demons dropping out of the sky in the Clover Kingdom, and I was like, dude, see, if we go and try telling you, bitch ass, like, you need to stay in the kingdom, because that is an important mission in and of itself. And was like, no, I just want to be selfish and get revenge. But then, the next week, he was like, oh, well, that guy's there, and he believes in Asta. That's cool. But you can also see in Yuno's eyes, like, he just wants to be everywhere, and he can't be everywhere. So him having Aether makes so much sense, because if something goes down over there, then yeah, I got this. And then it's not even a stretch, because we even see that Fodder Queen is able to essentially be everywhere at once too. She's keeping tabs on everyone, and that's just water magic, you know what I mean? So I really think Quan just like debunks and man. Anyway, Quan's mid.
Yeah. I have a guy on my Discord named Juski, and so he's been asking me about the twins fusing, and I've already given him my thoughts. But you and I think whenever we talked about this earlier, wasn't it with Joski? What were maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, in terms of what do you think about them fusing and kind of where Tabata's going with that possible misdirection?
I don't. You know what? I'm always going to be married to my own theories. Of course, not married. But
well, I think it's a cool thought, and I want him to hear it too, because I think that I said something different, because I think that everyone is going with the whole like, oh, look at them possibly fusing, and they even have the fan art, which I think is really dope. Don't get me wrong. Like on Twitter, they had the whole fan art that looks fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But the whole aspect of the lore of some of this stuff, I've purposely kind of been not talking about too much, especially with the people on my Discord, that they've been kind of waiting for it. And I've been waiting for you to talk about in terms of the Samael Lilith stuff. So maybe you want to tease or talk about the what we said earlier with Joski.
So the answer is yes and no. For me, I don't think they'll fuse together. I don't think it will be Lilith and Nama. I think Lilith can fuse with Samael, and Nama can fuse with Asmodeus. That's where the fusion would be for me. As far as them working in tandem, so this is a super interesting concept, and I this is why I'm pushing for Nightmare Magic right here, is because remember, if we look at the Tree of Life, you have Malkuth, which is where Patri is, and Patri perfectly resembles Keter, which is Licht. That's why they couldn't even tell the difference, except for Raya, because he's different, and that's my boy. But he perfectly resembled the very top. So it would have to be the same as above, so below. So Lilith and Nama would be reflecting what we know as the Thamael, which are the twin gods, which is why everyone was confused, of course, is yes, they're twins, and they're also known as contending forces. I just got called a skunk by John. Jesus Christ. Because Heather Jackson here. I got it. Dude, I was about to boo you. No, I'm just kidding. If they have fire and ice. Those are two contending forces already. But then if they work in tandem with their other side, so Lilith is attributed to nightmares in lore, and Nama is attributed to nightmarish sounds. So I feel like if they do use their magic together and fuse their magic in that way, then that's how it would come out and be like manifestation of nightmares and stuff like that. But yeah, just simply, I don't think they'll fuse together as sisters. They'll fuse with who they mated with further down in the Qliphoth. But yeah. Yeah,
and there's kind of a weird... there's a weird lore of Samael just effing demon bitches of doing Archangel things in bad ways.
I mean, imagine being like one of the closest things to God, and then you're fucking so many things that God had personally, like
to castrate.
Oh my God, dude. those are life goals.
I put out a TikTok today that said, because a lot of people tagged me in that post that I sent you, and maybe a couple of people that are here now were here a little bit earlier, but they were saying that they were tagging me in an old post that were asking me who I thought the angel was for Charlotte, and I essentially teased that I thought it was Samael, and they have a kind of a feminine appearance with Nagicula, and so like the one who caused that did the cursing of Charlotte and is the one that's with in the whole Vinicula thing might potentially be Samael, because it's the poison of God and the whole serpent thing, and might be playing with the whole like hair being serpents, and like the actual form actually be like the angel, and then maybe like Tabata plays with the whole aspect of like after castration it like became this like more female and more demonic type creature, but who knows? It could be a lot of potential things, but that's kind of my thoughts as well.
Yeah,
my 2 cents that one asked for.
Dude, that's why you're here. We want your 2 cents. So I'm kind of at the bottom of the chat right now, and I'm kind of working my way up as they're coming in. But John, you said, isn't Asmodeus the son of Lilith and Adam? Yes, and that's why it gets incesty, and that's a lot of creation stories are super incesty, because when you only have 2 people trying to populate the Earth, I mean, it's got to be incest. So, yes, it is. That's how it is. But I'm sure Tabata won't do that. Even though anime does have a tendency to somehow involve incest in their stories.
Yeah. Rimuru Zoldyck earlier. Now I'm getting through some of the stuff that was maybe 20 minutes ago. They're saying that have you read comics, the Wonder Woman comic, in terms of her being I think an older story was her being the clay doll, but now it's Wonder Girl being the clay doll, and it's kind of similar to what we're talking about, the whole like Amazonian aspect of like making someone from clay and then giving them life, with the whole aspect of like they're Greek goddesses, and they give this clay doll life,
right?
And it's like she finds out at one point. It's like this whole thing, but he's saying that Asta is the male Wonder Woman.
Okay. See, I've never really been into comics for some reason. I just could never get into that.
Yeah, so you're seeing a few Wonder Woman comments, and that's what it's from. That's why.
I gotcha. Okay. Someone had something I wanted to answer, actually. Oh, Nate was asking, are the books about angels or gods similar to the Grand Grimoire for devils? Something really interesting, like, WK, I'm sure you've come across this. Like, when you look at, try to look up, like, angels, you'll get some lore behind them, but they're not as specific as, like, you get, Belphegor is the overlooker of contracts and all that stuff, and he's got this power over this and blah blah blah. You don't really get that for angels. You get their rank and maybe some like legend behind it, like what they did, but they don't have like these specific powers and all that stuff. And that goes into like why I always say that these devils rule over the hard physical laws that we abide by in the physical world, as to where angels, and in this case the Sephiroth, is more towards the human soul and mind, and less physical things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's a little bit more about Archangel lore that I found than angels, just in general.
Right.
And even then, there's not a whole lot of individual stuff like you're mentioning. It's really hard to find. Yeah, it's few and far between. In terms of like individuals, like you'll find like this Archangel slayed this demon because of this, or like I'm trying to think about what an exact instance. I think there was a Uriel and Raphael or Gabriel slayed Asmodeus and I can't remember who, because I was trying to like piece it together.
Like, Raguel.
Maybe they show up and just like swing on everybody.
They don't really do any of that.
But, yeah. So like I was trying to kind of piece that together, but in terms of like you're saying individual lore, there's not a whole lot.
Angels are they're kind of just laid back, and it's definitely a lot harder to find more hard evidence as to what angels can do, which is one of the reasons why I want Tabata to go like the Greek route with having Zeus, Poseidon, and all that stuff. I think that would keep things pretty interesting.
Well, also, I mean, like, he could honestly, I mean, not to kind of contradict, but in the sense that he could honestly have so many things kind of going at the same time that we don't know about, and kind of make his own. Because I think with the Qliphoth, he's kind of married to a certain aspect that he can't change a lot. With angels, I mean, like you're saying, there's Archangel lore, but there's not jack shit for angel lore. I mean, there's these... I mean, there's the whole, like, I forget what it's called. The, like, vision of... I can't remember who it was. Someone on YouTube tried to do a video, and I was trying to tell him what he was referencing. I can't remember what it is. It was someone having a vision of angels, and they have, like, chariots, and I don't know. If someone knows in the chat, they can throw it in there. But essentially, this guy has a vision of angels and a vision of God, and he has, like, chariots that look like wheels. And he was saying that like the wheels are the angels, but they're not. But the whole aspect is that there's not jack shit known about angels in lore, especially like you're saying in the Qliphoth. There's the high-ranking devils. Then you have like, I mean, you even have like Barbados, Azazel. Like you have like dukes of hell. Then you have people under them. You have people that are like they're devils that are within each Qliphoth that like we're kind of waiting on, especially like in the higher ranks of Qliphoth. That like we're waiting for them to be like dukes of hell. And I know you and I are like, ooh, this would be dope. But there's not anything of that sort other than like Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel, Michael, etc.
Yeah.
There's like what, 7?
There should still be 10 of them.
I guess there should be 10, yeah, because it's the Sephiroth.
If Tabata does do angels like classic archangels and stuff like that, I want him to go by the true description of them, because that would look so wild.
Just be absolute dicks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, have you heard like the physical descriptions of them?
Well, yeah. They're like metaphysical, and they like don't even make sense. Where like. So I've heard some stuff, but probably not as much as you have.
Dude, there's like I'm gonna mix up the names, and I'm sure at least Jack in this chat can correct me if I do get it. But I think it's the cherubim are like freaking wheels, like flaming wheels. They're not even human. They're just flaming wheels of just like God's wrath. And then, God, what was the other stuff? One is just like a bunch of eyes.
So the cherub. Okay, so this was a little bit of clarity that I thought so the cherubim was in. I'm trying to remember where, but it's half what you're saying and half not. So in the God, where is it? It's a vision of God. Who was it? Someone had a vision of God and a vision of like. Oh God, I'm trying to Google it now. Hang on.
Google's cheating.
But essentially,
on this channel, you either know or you don't. WK.
Right. I think it was Ezekiel. Was it Ezekiel? Maybe. Hang on. Vision of Ezekiel. So essentially, the whole story of this is he saw these angels, and I think they were archangels, but they might have been just angels. And they're like essentially just rides, which were these. I think their vessels that they were traveling on were the wheels, and the angels were these like weird creatures with 3 faces that you're mentioning, and like one was they were always pointing in like 3 different directions, no matter which way. Like they could never face the same, and like they had like this. Like they always had. I think there was 3 angels and 3 chariots, if I remember right. And it was like this whole weird thing. But I think it's called the Visions of Ezekiel. But I don't think the angels were the chariots or the cherubims. I think those were like kind of what they traveled on. I can't remember exactly now.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever read that specifically. So that sounds pretty interesting.
I think they're the Visions of Ezekiel.
I wanted to answer a question. Yeah. Eternal Beast. You said I think it was said that they look like that to scare demons away. So the way I look at that is that angels predate demons. So they started out looking like that.
Yeah, and some of the devils that are in the Qliphoth started as angels, like Samael. Samael was the archangel.
Right. And some of them were actually gods.
Were they described as like, yeah, and so like they were fallen, and so that's how we talked about how they can introduce pretty cool aspects.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of how I go. But it's one of those things that like it ties into our theory, but the whole aspect of Luck being a Raijin fits perfectly. Yuno being Greek, and then Noel being Norse. It seems like it's fitting a host of pantheons, and it's not going a single route. So I think they're going to introduce the whole Christianity route with angels, archangels, that type of thing.
Yeah. And so
just as another fork.
it's really interesting that you brought that up, because there was something I found. I kept it away from you because I was going to save it for the other video, but just to introduce the concept. So while looking into that subject, I'm going to do the anime route where they go like that guy instead of like directly addressing it. But when we're talking about that subject, there are 3 different. So you were saying like they're kind of across 3 different pantheons right now, and this, what I found, supports that, to where we typically have them at some point creating a balance in the world. They actually are ruling 3 different things. So it kind of goes into what you said, but that's going to go into our video later on.
Yeah. Which I think will be I think that could really gain traction, and it's a really cool video. It'll probably get reproduced, but it's it's a really cool concept. And you heard it here first. But yeah, I think it's a cool concept.
So okay, we were talking about something today that we didn't get into. So the ascension, a process that the Golden Dawn talks about, right? The Golden Dawn. So okay, the way we started the conversation was that we have the flow of power comes from Keter all the way down to Malkuth. And Malkuth is kingdom, and that's the world of the living. And it emanates all 10 emanations of God. But in the Golden Dawn philosophy, the point of that, the Tree of Life, is to climb it. So you go from Malkuth, hoping to get to Keter someday. And this is where you ultimately end up abandoning your physical body. And this actually goes into like Broku's theory about Asta dying. But to kind of get off of that, so we have this thing that people like to ignore. I swear to God, they love to ignore this. Oh man. Okay, so people ignore the fact that all the elves look the exact same as their counterparts in the elf arc. And then we have Liebe, who looks just like Asta. And then we have freaking Dante Faust and Vonica Faust in this new chapter, which is, I believe, what ended up sparking our alternate reality conversation.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, so off the Dante and Vonica thing, that I'm still developing headcanon on that. Trust me, it's coming. But the thing is that this goes back to the whole time thing, and Zagreus is definitely involved. So if we start out as humans at Kingdom, hoping to get to Malkuth, or not Malkuth, but Keter, then you're essentially getting reincarnated higher and higher, as long as you live your life correctly, let's say that. And then at one point after your, let's say, 10th life, you're at Keter now. And then, I think we were saying that at one point in another life you would become an elf. That would be the next one, because the hierarchy of how much one can hold depends on race, right? We've directly seen the statement, like just not even 6 chapters ago, from the triad, that humans can't hold a ton of mana, which is why you can't learn ultimate magic, but you can learn pseudo-ultimate magic via mana method, right? But elves can use it because they can use a whole lot of mana because their bodies are able to maintain that, whether they're apostles or not. So there's obviously a hierarchy, and if we're climbing a ladder, humans would be at the bottom, whereas elves would be at the pinnacle. So I think that's why they look alike. Now, as far as time goes, this kind of goes back into, like, this is a headcanon I developed, and of course, feel free to disagree. But it's, if we go back to if Astaroth is the time devil and Belial is the space devil, Astaroth could be, the timeline could have got super messed up with what Zagreus did, because what he did was freeze those souls right where they were. So regardless of if he had time magic or whatever, you're not affecting those things until essentially Zagreus' spell lets up. So he totally messed up the natural flow of time and space in this matter. Because I forgot what it was, and I wish I had the panel pulled up, but he says something kind of interesting to where he says that he's going to like trap these souls, and then in 500 years they'll come out. But the way he said it is like, it's when you talk about time, there's no beginning or end. It just goes. So when he does it, then it's almost instantaneous that they come out. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, like he was just cool with just chilling for 500 years.
Right, but it wasn't actually 500 years is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was almost like a portal to like blasting them 500 years, but he did seal them then and there. And they technically did have to wait 500 years.
Okay, so I'll play devil's advocate here. What if time is a little bit different in the underworld? And like, if he hypothetically he wouldn't have gone. I'm trying to think about if he would have gone back and then he probably wouldn't have gone back into the underworld and gone back. So he probably would have just sat there and waited. But yeah, I mean, you're right. We've talked about this many times. That there's a lot of weird time stuff that doesn't really match up, because a lot of the stuff this is why I like talking to you about theories. We don't really like blast each other up in the sense of like, oh yeah, that's great, and just like every single idea is gold. Mm-hmm. We play devil's advocate, and we like kind of like, okay, well, this is how this wouldn't fit. How would you explain this?
Right.
And so you're right that we've played like 3 or 4 different things in our own kind of headcanon that don't really make sense, with the whole like Dark Disciple being the exact same age, with the whole like, you know, this is kind of, once again, the whole headcanon thing. But you know, I said like Nox's parents look like Dante and Vanica were a universe that they only had cocaine instead of fine wine and steaks.
Facts.
And demons. They had demons. They had those. But like, it's you would have to kind of explain the fact that they had different magics, because it seems obviously that the dad had shadow magic versus Dante had body magic. But I don't think that's not the only thing that has the theory held up. That you even have the like whole aspect of, and this is something that I kind of brought to the table, is the whole Asta Libe thing. And there's like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 things that they don't seem to make sense, and then we get the bomb of last chapter that says time. So we have space and time and gravity. Like, I mean, that's huge for multiversal stuff. So I mean, if you want to ignore that, that's fine. But in terms of if you want to make theories, that's prime rib for trying to make multiverses.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, as far as all that goes, we didn't want to talk about alternate Astas in this one, huh? That's fine. And then,
I mean, we can without. I mean, I'm fine with. I guess, how would we talk about? I mean, we've already teased Asta being Jesus. You've talked about it. I've talked about it. I talked about it in my Chaos video.
Yeah,
and I read them into your video. So I mean, we can talk about that.
Okay.
I think that's fine.
So, where do we start? Okay, so we have a woman, Lucita, who cannot have sex. I don't care how you splice this. Broku made a bomb-ass tweet today too, about like, not Broku, but Asta's father pulling out and immediately dying. But there's no way that happened. There's no conception happening. There's no intercourse happening whatsoever with that woman. So I'm imagining a woman who's so desperate to have a child, right? And also a part of a certain group, leaning towards certain agendas. But what happens is we end up successfully creating an Asta one way, but there's fate tied into this. Lucita cannot take care of this child for whatever reason, whether that be she sucks the life out of it, or well, that's really it, because we don't really care about Mana at this point. But the inception of Asta, now we have Liebe. If she used the route of the devil, using devil Mana, and let's say the baby ends up dying, goes to the Qliphoth, then you have a Liebe with no magic, and that's just another Asta. And then you get this Asta created somehow We presented the Golem theory earlier.
Yeah.
But, this is the one that makes it because she ultimately has to make this decision, like, the fates will not let me have this kid. So I have to do the next best thing and drop it off to a place where I know he'll grow up and have a good life and make good decisions.
Yes, exactly.
So this is where we get the Asta we know now, and then we have the Liabe, where they both end up connecting anyway, because they're essentially the same being at their core.
Making a perfect union.
Right.
Exactly.
And then we end up getting into that thing, and that's, I guess, where we stop. But that I think there's some weight to that for sure. It's just a matter. The only reason why I think it's not feasible is just because I don't see how someone could write that. Just because I can't see it, so it doesn't mean it can't be done.
It would be very complex, which isn't out of Tabata's wheelhouse, but oh man, he has to spin it a certain way. Which, do you read Fire Force? I've been meaning to ask you this in all the messages we've had. I haven't. Have you read Fire Force?
No, I actually don't. I've been wanting to though.
Oh.
It looks fire, pun intended.
You don't need to read any Fire Force messages that are in this. And you don't need to listen to me about anything about Fire Force. You need to go read Fire Force, and then we'll talk about it after. Anyway.
Okay. All right.
John Tate, actually, he's been in the chat, kind of on our butt about a lot of good stuff.
God, John is so whack. I swear to God, I hate John.
He said with dwarves being the middle, since Charmy got crazy amounts of mana, he's in. I swear he has.
He's in our chat right now. Yeah, he's in our chat for sure.
Yeah. This John, we've actually been talking about this. We actually talked about this today.
Yeah.
Jack's been talking about. We've been talking for like 3 straight weeks about all types of random shit. And for some reason, you just have the notes to everything we've been talking about. So dwarves, we actually have been talking about how it's linked to the whole like Earth Spirit and Gnome, and how it kind of ties into other theories. So I won't talk about everything, but it is a good question. It's a great question in the sense of how it connects, because we don't really know how it connects with in terms of mana, because Charmy herself somehow has endless mana. Now, is that because that she is higher in the Sephiroth, like we were talking about climbing the Sephiroth and having a higher level of divinity, and she's just has an insanely high pool of mana because she's a half dwarf, or is she actually pulling her mana from Fenrir? And so I don't know. I should probably say because we didn't talk about this too much. But I personally feel like it might be pulling mana from Fenrir, which I guess you could kind of say it might be Fenrir, or what is it, Skulti or Hati, the two sons of Fenrir, depending on how you want to spin it, because like, isn't it Scully or Skulti that eats the sun that starts Ragnarok and all that stuff? But I can't remember which the sons of Fenrir eats the sun to start Ragnarok. But the whole aspect of I think that one of the sons of Loki, which that's a whole other aspect, is kind of dwelled within her Charming, within her dwarf state. Now it might be that she's just like, it's tied up within that state, and she's pulling her mana from him, and it's not actually her mana, and that's why it's kind of like an endless mana. So it might not actually be that dwarves are like the highest or even the middle. It may just be that they're like perfect vessels, maybe. I mean, it's kind of a theory that, once again, it's something that we haven't even fully fleshed out. It's something that we just barely started talking about today.
Right.
But it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into this, because there's when you look at the tree of life, there's certain philosophies that end up splitting it into creations, which is fire, water, earth, and wind. Earth being where creation is, and I think fire is like the highest, where you don't have form. And this is actually what I sent you today, talking about Adam, where Satan was like, no, I don't fuck with Adam because he's made from earth or clay, and I'm made of fire because I'm fire, bitch. And so It's really interesting because then we have like the three spirits, and if Asta's a golem, then maybe four. Who knows? I don't know. But I think it is all really interesting because when you look at, like, go ahead and Google like Sylph and the Salamander and the other one.
Yeah. All the
Undine. Yeah. They all have very physical descriptions to them, and the one attributed to Earth is mentioned to be instead of dwarves, they mentioned that they are specifically gnomes. There's no big difference, but they just say gnomes. And I think that's super interesting that, we would have the dwarves as Earth, and then you work your way up from there. The ultimate, I think, it's either fire or air. It's one of those. And I'm forgetting, but water is kind of in the middle. But yeah, it's all really interesting. There's so many different ways to determine or use the tree of life. There's Jacob's ladder. There's what I just mentioned with the elements. There's so many.
I think even the Sephiroth is split up even in like Norse mythology. I mean, like you could split it into all types of stuff. And like you had mentioned the multiverse stuff, and I was like, there's something that you could try to contain it as a writer, and say that you could kind of try to contain it within the realms. Now that's a whole other story in itself. But that's a thought. Like you mentioned the whole like elf. You can start to trying to tie like Vardelheim and Alfheim and like all that stuff within Midgard, because like the whole like the guard within like Midgard is because it has like guards within its realm, because it like doesn't like it has to be guarded within, like other things that can encroach upon it, like the whole Asgard and like other things, but you know what I'm saying, like it could be way more complicated really quick, but you could also confine a multiversal aspect within the whole North aspect.
Yeah, it's all there. It's all literally there. That's, like I said, the lore in and of itself is crazy, but the way Tabata is doing this is even more insane. Which is why I love the series, and people have been saying this on Twitter, and I totally agree with it. If people keep telling you this is a turn your brain off series, they are so far gone. They have no idea what they're talking about, and they're just lost in the sauce. That's all it is.
Lost in the sauce.
They really are. So, off theories for just a sec. I think we both just said we are not scaling guys, and this could be just like a little fun thing. One of the commenters said, "Who's winning? Current or current luck?" Current luck's hitting for me right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, because he knows ultimate or pseudo ultimate.
Bro, was moving, but luck was moving. I've never seen an anime character, almost off-screen characters in a manga. I've never seen that in my life. Like there were literally almost no panels. Tabata could have given luck for that.
Yeah, and he did it. He took like 3 of them. I thought it was 1 in the scans. Whenever the actual officials came out, it was
right. It looked like it was just 1. It was all of them.
Oh my god, dude! Yes, I agree with that. I agree. Like I'm probably, just because he knows pseudo ultimate right now, and the fact that, I mean, like, as much as I believe will surpass him in the end, and like where the series
absolutely.
is going,
yeah,
and like White Tree, I think. Yeah, I think current luck right now with the pseudo ultimate,
bruh,
with his whole Raijin magic.
Good lord, that kid's.
I think he takes it.
My god, and he's got wings now too.
I'm waiting.
He's got a tail, goddammit.
For that.
Does have a tail? No,
yes.
He doesn't. What trash.
Equals times 100. Yeah.
You saw that in freaking Dragon Ball Z. Tails are everything.
Until someone grabs it.
Exactly. Yajirobe's the real MVP.
It's a weakness.
Okay, John. That's a good point. So he's saying, isn't Earth not a primary based on the triad of Keter, Bina, and Chokma being air, water, and fire? So there's different ways to break it up. Like I said, there's the way you break it up into the whole tree is just fire, just water, just air, and just earth. And then, yes, they are separated by within the tree itself. The top being...
Oh, yeah, we've talked about this quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it goes from, like, air to fire to water, then to creation. Oh, no, backwards. Fire is actually about...
all of them could be contributed to all of the different pieces.
You guys...
As well as they can be contributed separately.
Just Google fractals, and this is exactly why you can never get a straight answer for whatever we talk about. Because one thing leads to another, but it's a macro thing, but you need all the micro pieces, and it just reflects in and out. So, like, this is what Tabata is doing, and this is why the series is hard for a lot of people to grasp. And this is why they keep saying Black Clover's mid. It's because they don't get it. That's honestly what it is. They just don't get it.
But yeah, the what you're talking about, John, is actually something that, once again, I mean, like I say, you're in our notes. We talked about that one thing that you're referencing very specifically, because the whole aspect of, you know, fire, water, earth, air, in terms of what they differ in the Sephiroth, and how they could be, you know, it kind of ties into our other theory, but it's kind of a small thing in terms of, I don't think anyone would. That's why I'm not too worried about kind of teasing our theory right now, because it's such a, like, wild concept. I don't see anyone putting it together. Mm-hmm. But it plays somewhat into that, and we talked about that just a bit. Mm-hmm. If that's enough.
Yeah, you got a direct question here. WK, what I'm basing it on is Libra's. You got a direct question in the chat here. So, John's saying that he's basing it on
no.
Libra 777, the way Crowley put it. So, I guess it's not a question, it's just a statement. But, John, I know what you're talking about. I believe it's also Crowley who does it the way that I just explained as well.
We're referencing Crowley. Mm-hmm. Now, Libra 777, I'll have to look at. But Libra 777 is exactly what we're talking about. Like, it references kind of into what we're talking about. Yes. I don't want to say more than that, but yes.
Okay. Fair. All right. Another quick scaling one. We have, I believe, by Asta Devil they mean current Asta.
You said love by mana, not
by bitches. Oh man, I'm gonna have to screenshot that and send it to Will, John. Sorry, about to get ratioed to hell and back. So current Asta versus Zagrid. What's your opinion, WK?
Oh, just solo?
Yeah.
I think Asta could, especially like Devil Union Asta.
Yeah.
I think he could probably take him.
Yeah.
So there's someone that popped in the chat, Avatar. So Avatar Sholin is the one that actually helps me with my Discord. He's one of my buddies from college. But he actually, we kind of joke around that he's a Zagrid D writer. So we've kind of had these conversations. Zagrid is pretty freaking broken. Mm-hmm. Whenever you actually analyze it, what you're talking about, especially what you and I have talked about in terms of like him existing outside of the multiverse, or like even maybe not the multiverse, but maybe existing within the multiverse outside of the current what we see in the universe. Mm-hmm. But just from what we've seen, I think Asta, just not being a scalar.
Okay.
Especially with Devil Union.
Yeah.
Bro,
I'm not going to be the guy who goes like speed is everything in a battle, but he's not keeping up with Asta anymore. He was barely doing well against Lumiere and Licht and Yami. I mean, he wasn't really moving at all. So
yeah, that was before the time skip. Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, like, they went through all that time skip, and I mean, Yami at that point didn't even know Mana Method. I mean, like, damn, this dude didn't even.
Yeah.
What was he doing?
I don't see Zagreus coming out of that right now. There's nothing I can see he can do. I mean,
he just has like a permanent hacks in that universe that he just, especially if Zagreus doesn't see it coming. I mean, it's done.
Okay, let me spice this verse battle up real quick. So, same Devil Union Asta against Zagreus, but Zagreus has the Eminem rap god spirit.
Oh man!
Can you imagine a spirit dive Zagreus with mouths that can just straight up slim Sharma Dinga? Dude, I can't even do it.
Just spit bars. See, honestly, he to me didn't even seem like he would. He seemed like he actually hadn't been in a fight that he actually had to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even know what to. He just kept saying swords and the other shit. Like he wasn't even. Like those worms and shit that he was bringing, they were just like beings from the other universe. That wasn't even like his real spell. That was just like, oh, I'm gonna like let loose the like random creature from the other universe.
Yeah.
The underworld.
Yeah, he didn't really do too much of his own stuff, I guess. I mean, could he
see anything going against Asta? To be honest,
is there anything Zagreus could say to summon that would actually be worthwhile? I think the best thing he pulled out was that trident, but Asta was the natural counter.
Yeah, he just nerf immediately. See that? Okay, so that introduces the whole aspect of, you and I have talked about this. I've kind of told you about it. I think that they're going to introduce divine mana and it being different than regular mana. And like initially, Libe is not going to be able to counter it. So if I'm gonna like, this is not scaling, this is just completely off the cuff, just random bullshit. What if he like Kododama'd some like weapon of Asgard that was immune to anti-magic? Okay,
so like more purposeful tools instead of just like random ass iron swords.
Yeah.
That
like he wouldn't be able to negate it, and it would. You know what I'm saying?
That would be actually super interesting, and I wonder if he would have that capability if he was just a tad bit less cocky.
Yeah, I don't think he would be. So I think he would get washed. But it's a cool concept.
It is. It is definitely a cool concept. A devil with magical tools is kind of like... Oh, that reminds me. Someone mentioned... it was Nate who asked if we thought Weg... if Asta potentially started getting Weg as soon as he got the grimoire, or did it develop later? And I think that was a good question, because I think there's some stuff to clear up as far as anti-magic, because those swords are anti-magic already. And then you have the anti-magic from Libe.
Yeah. So that's kind of something that we're like I mentioned earlier in the stream. I don't know if anyone's actually joined or just everyone stuck around. But there's a few points in the timeline that we've actually tried to explain, like why everything's going on. One of the huge things is that I've tried to explain personally is, why do the swords potentially have anti-magic? Now you may say that like, oh, they're kind of rusted out and maybe it's just how they look, and even what they look like in the anime, whenever he actually uses them with like full anti-magic when Libe is fighting Asta, they're completely black. But whenever Asta is using them and he's like has the like dregs of anti-magic going into them, they look like how they look whenever he first nabbed them. So it shows that someone had to like coat them in anti-magic before. So like what's going on with that?
Because even Licht used it like Asta did, and he purified it when he grabbed it.
Exactly. So it can't be that Licht just stashed these in different dungeons. Like the thought I think initially was like, oh, he potentially fought off the devils, he stashed all these swords in different places, and then he's like he has a good life after he has this whole battle, finds Tetia. Oh, psych, he had this whole protagonist story, and then it like flips around and he dies. And he has these twins. Oh, maybe he sacrifices one. I don't know. We've had that whole theory from then on. But the whole aspect of it is kind of fishy to me, because you can't have him stash those there. Even with, you and I have talked about this a little bit, with Bell Bell is there in the second dungeon with one of the swords.
Right.
One is coated in anti-magic with freaking Bell there. Mm-hmm. So how the hell does the sword have anti-magic? Like, you have to explain these things. Even whenever Licht was like reincarnated, made another body, whatever you want to call it in the Elf arc, whenever he just like picked up the Demon Destroyer sword, the third sword, it had anti-magic as well. And then he purified it and then fought both of them. So there's something going on here that we're missing that whole timeline.
Okay, see, this is the thing. This is right off the top of the dome, okay? So, I even mentioned this in our chat, is that if there's one thing that people in the BC community dispute about as far as, what happens in the story, it's exactly what you said. It's the timeline. And this is why the Time Devil's so important, I feel like, and so is Julius. Because the dungeon is yet to be explained. There's multiple dungeons, but that one decided to reveal itself at that time. And they never explained why that ever happens or when it happens, right? So, and in one of my other videos talking about ley lines, I explained that it's probably on a ley line, which does have to do with the flow of time as well. So, I'm thinking that these swords are things like Astaroth is placing throughout time. Because, yes, they're already anti-magic, but they work better with someone who has anti-magic as an energy source, right? Because he can channel that through the sword naturally. So that's why I'm thinking there's a whole battle between Time Devil and probably Space Devil right now. But that's what I'm thinking. But to go back to like the dungeon, the sword being there with Bell, we also have to find out like why the diamond went there, because they seem like they were in there for the riches. Because you don't send Mars to go like scavenge for shit. Lotus did escape with like some goods.
Which there was a lot of stuff there.
There was.
But it was kind of convenient.
Yeah, obviously there were two big things there, and that was Bell and the sword. So I'm wondering if the Diamond King knew about this, or if Morris knew about this, since Morris was there. And I think something was happening, because I had a theory a while back that Morris was trying to create the true grimoire, or the grand grimoire, where he is trying to collect anything he can, spirits included, to kind of mash into this ultimate grimoire so that he could be unstoppable. And they were probably going for Bell for that, but it was convenient that kind of got the layup and stumbled upon that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I like that thought. It fits into the whole aspect of if Morris were to play a bigger role later. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting aspect for sure.
Yeah.
It's something that I think a lot of people overlook. Just like the whole, like we talked about this, but Libe, everyone, we have the whole chapter, and I've talked about this multiple times on my TikTok, but I put out a video of I have like 14 videos about this, but like that Libe is his name that Lucita gave him, but we don't know his actual fucking name, and we don't know how devils are actually made. Like Brooke has made a few videos on like how he potentially thinks, and you and I have talked about this quite a bit, but like there's a lot of different theories and there's a lot of potentials, but the fact that his name is Libe, everyone was like, oh, his name's Libe, it's done. But I'm like,
nah, it's not.
That's you're sweeping it under the rug whenever there's a lot of stuff that could be there that you're just completely ignoring because you're worrying about a lot of other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, we have
gotta catch them all.
I mean, he's really trying to. So you got 20 of you in the chat right now. What I would like to see is what are some things you would like to see in these upcoming chapters? Like, for example, for me, I'd love to see more forbidden magic. I hope Tabata doesn't sweep that shit under the rug, because that's kind of important. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts? What do you think, WK? What is something you want to see coming up?
In terms of like immediately, or just down the road?
Down the road.
I really want to be. Uh, I really want the aspect of Yuno and Noel being able to damage devils to be explained, personally. Because I feel like it could be something that's very swept under the rug and being like, oh, they're just evolving. And for us, that's very deep in the mythos. It's something that, like, just in typical shonen series, it could very well just be like, oh, they're going Super Saiyan. They're doing a lot of other stuff. Right. But I would very much like to see, and I think he will do it, don't get me wrong. I think he will give us a reason why they're reaching arcane levels. Because we know this, like, this level of magic that we have from the Clover Kingdom is set. And now we go to the Heart Kingdom, and he specifically just rearranged everything from going, like, what was it, stage 6 or 7, or I don't remember the bottom, all the way to stage 0 and then arcane.
Right.
So the arcane mages are able to damage them for whatever specific reasons. One, I would like to know how, like, where does arcane come from? We've talked about that. But I want to know why they have something that's not arcane that could damage devils. Because I think that would be a huge thing that would be super cool mythologically.
Yeah, I agree with that. We have some other stuff in the chat. Like, True, he wants to see an actual anti-magic spell without the need of the swords. That's a cool concept. Because if Asta can shoot that shit like Yu Yu Hakusho, it's game over. He's just one-shotting everybody. Just got the anti-magic blickies on him.
Yeah. Spirit gun that shit.
Yeah.
You spoke my right language. Yu Yu Hakusho is like my favorite show as a kid.
Oh, dude.
That shit was my shit.
That was the one that put me on to anime. That and Trigun.
Oh my god.
God damn.
I like that whole concept. In terms of being able to, like, internalize it, and especially, like, in Devil Union, because he's actually using
the actual
Libe anyway.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that aspect.
Yeah, that'd be sick. I feel like it'd be a lot like how Yami describes his dark magic without a sword, where it's just really slow. But I'm sure there's ways you can apply it to make it pretty OP, because anti-magic is OP in and of itself.
John said Gordon to face Samael since poison hex magic versus poison demon magic. I actually really like that concept.
Yeah, dude.
Especially if they go to Samael, that would be dope.
Dude, Gordon's coming in clutch this arc for sure. I think they're gonna. Did we talk about this? Where we're gonna. Oh no, it's gonna lean into one of your other theories. No, not about Gordon though. But I think Gordon can potential. I think the utmost potential he can get with the knowledge that he's getting from his family is how to break these contracts. Did I? No. Did I? No, I didn't.
No, you're good.
Okay. Yeah.
It's kind of convoluted anyway. I may just introduce it here anyway because we're like an hour into this anyway.
No, were you talking about the Agrippas? I thought you were talking about something else.
I was talking about something else, but it's perfectly fine. Which that may lead into that. I mean, we can talk about that too.
That'd be super dope if it ends up being a battle over like the contracts and shit. Oh my god, that'd be crazy.
Yeah. So I'll just mention it here because I'll probably make a video and I'll probably link back to this and we'll talk about it. But one thing that I've talked to Jack about, which you guys can kind of mention, the aspect of Belphegor. So Belphegor is a devil that has kind of a dope concept. Now, Jack is willing to die on this on this hill that Belphegor is currently in Dante. Now, I really like the aspect of Belphegor being the devil of lies. He obviously has a lot of other things to his repertoire, even being like to worship him. They like worship the phallus, which is weird, but
I mean, he does look like a dick to me.
So Belphegor in general was known to look over the contracts, and he's known to actually be like a hinderer or like a disputer of the state of gnosis or henosis. And so what this is it's kind of essentially, to me, it might be referencing the state of union for Asta. And so this would be a perfect concept for me, that the whenever the Thagirion opens up for Belphegor to come out. If he is in Dante, then I can be completely proved wrong, and Jack's going to be singing on the top of his hill. But if not,
bro, I'm gonna
shoot him down.
I'm gonna be shitting on everyone if it's Belphegor. I swear to God.
Oh my God! So if the thought is correct, then what would be really cool for me is the fact that if Belphegor could potentially hinder Asta's devil union, because Asta can show up at this site, and I know he's somewhat hindered by the whole time constraint that he has currently, but if it's like, if he shows up and just murks on one or two devils, and he's ready to murk on the next whoever opens the door, and Belphegor comes through and he essentially breaks the contract of him and Libe, that would be a dope concept. And for me, it would be really cool to have like the whole, like we talked about, the physical versus mental aspects of their magic. And so like it would be really cool to have Belphegor, who's over the contracts, be able to break the contract of the Devil Union, and they would be just sent in a whole flux of trying to figure out what the hell's going on, while Asta was just murking through everyone. Now they're in a whole, like, trying to figure everything out.
Right. And that actually leads into another thing someone wanted to see. So I think it was Jack on here. He wanted to see more strategic battles in here. Because, I mean, I don't think anyone can argue that with Asta being with his Devil Union now, he can pretty much one-shot anything if he gets close enough. So it does kind of take strategy out of it. And that is something I'd like to see, too. Because I'm a huge Naruto fan. I'm a huge hand-to-hand combat sort of guy. So bringing that cerebral concept into everything they do is super dope. As much as I don't fuck with Fodder Queen, she had a really brilliant plan. I'm not going to take that from her, because blood doesn't mix with water. It does hinder her magic. That was dope thinking. Absolutely. That's sort of the stuff that I like.
Yeah.
And
which
when Dante...
That could play into it.
Mm-hmm. And then you have, Dante introducing singularities. We can nerd out about that. But, yeah, I would like to see that, Jack, too. That's super dope.
Yeah, and that could perfectly answer the next question. Black Skunk asked, I'm interested in seeing some, or basically stated, I'm interested in seeing some cool strategic fights.
Yeah.
Which basically mimicked exactly what you're just saying. So
yeah, I was referring to his question, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So then that okay.
I think there's another one here.
Yeah, we do need Xenon's devil to be named. I think that's one of the big reveals, because I think that if Xenon's devil was named, and then we find out in this chapter that he's, the top three are, time, space, and gravity, then we obviously know that he has the top three. So I think he's been keeping this secret, and I think that Jack has been having this running theory for a while now, that it's kind of somehow linked to Libe, which I don't disagree with. But it's more so I'm trying to piece it together for myself type of thing as well. But yeah, there's obviously for sure a reason why that's going on.
Mm-hmm. I was kind of, man, I there's so many things I just want to say it. I have no basis on it. But I'm going to say it anyway. So, Veronica Faust and Dante Faust. We have these two look just like the triad, right? Or two of them, right? And then we have Xenon. So then, I've had this headcanon where I believe that Xenon and Belial, I'm calling his devil Belial, are pretty much super close. And I don't think that his devil is using Xenon, we were kind of suspecting that Dante's devil Belphegor is using Dante as a toy. I think Xenon ultimately will end up sacrificing Vonica and Dante for whatever end that does for the Advent.
Saucy.
And I think Vonica's in on the plan to kind of screw over Dante as well, but she's not aware of the fact that she's getting screwed over in the process as well. Because I'm trying to think, like, Zagreus made this whole beautiful dark masterpiece of just chaos and bloodshed. And I would think that these top devils would definitely do something along those lines, but they would need an end. Well, unless they're just using them as toys. Again, they don't like humans. Liu stated that directly. So, that's something I'd love to see. That's headcanon. But I mean, I think as far as the headcanon part goes, is the Faust, Vonica, and Dante were from a different timeline or reality, if you will, and they brought them back to be used as toys for pretty much fucking with the underworld and thinking that they could just use devils however they wanted, to kind of get back at them. And so we have two lovers, Dante and Vonica, originally, who are into dark arts, trying to make devils go under their control, then get used by the devils in a different reality to cause an advent, to work together to ultimately destroy one another, and then hopefully find out before they die, like, oh shit, like, we totally fucked up. And this is kind of like their punishment for even tampering with the underworld. But
interesting. See, I was thinking more so in the sense that I guess you were thinking that, were you thinking that all three were kind of working individually, and that, like, so who do you think Lucifer was working with, either Belial / Belphegor or Astaroth?
So, okay, in this case, I believe the actual triad is Morris, Xenon, and not even Vonica. She's not even a triad, she's Magician.
Yeah, but she's probably Samael, but...
Right, so I think the real two threats are Morris and Xenon. And then I think Vonica and Xenon and Morris are aware that Dante could have Belphegor, not the true Lucifero. And so they're kind of letting him play this role. And someone mentioned it on Twitter to me, but we also have to remember, like, Xenon is the odd man out in this case, because we don't see a Xenon Faust in this, right? So my headcanon tells me Xenon has been with Belial for maybe quite a bit of time. Belial traveling throughout alternate times to counteract Astaroth, to promote an advent in at least one of them, because if they can succeed in one, then they succeeded in all of them.
It's interesting, because in my headcanon, I was having it almost in the sense that, like, Belial / Belphegor was working with Astaroth, and, like, the space-time was essentially to go against, you know, whoever was in charge, whether that, you know, we have conflicting theories in the sense of the whole, like, whether it's in Morris or whether it's someone that we haven't seen yet, or whether it's actually in Dante.
Okay.
But in the sense of, like, the whole, if you're going to introduce, like, the multiversal aspect, I think you would need something beyond maybe just time. You would probably need space and time. So it might be that they might be working together to overthrow the, like, true king type of thing. And it might not even be Lucifer. It's probably Moloch or Satan.
That would be a really cool concept.
The whole, yeah, and, like, it could be the whole aspect of, like, maybe even Libe being Satan, and they played into the whole aspect of, like, severing the tie and then, like, sending him back, and then, like, they realize, hey, Lucifer's a total dick, we need him back, like, who fucking knows? And then, like, Libe has to be, like, you know, choosing whether he wants to be part of the whole Moloch, Satan, Thamael type of thing, whether he wants to be part of, you know, Libe or Asta with the whole, like, quote unquote Jesus type of thing. So I think it would be a cool concept to play with. Because, like, I think the two of them together with the unholy trinity could have kind of, like, caused a whole lot of chaos with, especially if, you know, we talk about they might have had this whole Qliphoth thing happen before, and maybe Astaroth being higher up, he got released first and could have really fucked with shit, whether it be, you know, through various means, via Julius, via, you know, the husks with the what are they called? The swallowtails with all types of stuff. Like he could have done a number of things, and nobody would have really known because the Qliphoth wouldn't have gone that far yet, and maybe licked or whoever, because there's a reason they're named Demon Destroyer, Demon Slayer, Demon, all that stuff. So there's a lot of cool concepts that you could play with, and Astaroth could be at the center of it because, like you're saying, the whole time, past, present, future thing.
And so the point you touched on this at the beginning of that, where you have them working together. I still have them working apart because time has a very literal destination. Like they have coordinates, right? But everything has to be in the exact place where they were. So that's why, let's use Julius as an example. When you see Julius uses time magic, he has to encapsulate his target because he can't just reverse or speed up time itself unless he is monozoning the entire universe, because then you have to start moving planets and other celestial bodies back to where they were in the exact position they were to make time actually flow that way. But there's this concept that the further you travel in space, the further back in time you go, depending on direction. If you're headed towards like the center of the universe, right? You're going back in time. Whereas you're heading outwards, you're heading forward in time. So you're very...
Well, what's funny about that is that's all is based on gravity almost.
Right, but that's why I'm saying like Lucifero would end up squashing both of those beefs because he can control both. And that's why this whole trinity totally makes sense to me. I love what they're introducing. Yeah. All of it just flows, man. Tabata's got it.
No, I completely agree. My own headcanon was formed just in the sense of, wasn't there like an old with like, I can't remember who the author was, like Wagner, and like I think there was another one that had Beelzebub have a revolt against Lucifer, and there was a whole like war between Beelzebub, which I want to say it was Beelzebub. It wasn't Belial, but I think it was Beelzebub. Which, depending on how they spin the whole like spatial, like who it is. Right. But he had a revolt against Lucifer. I thought. I'm trying to remember exactly how it was. But that was why I formed the whole like how would this actually form? And like then if you have these two sides, it's either the time devil of Astaroth is taking a complete third party side and not taking either of them and saying fuck both of you,
right?
Or taking one of them. And in my mind I was like, maybe Belial / Beelzebub or whoever's in, and you and I have talked about this in terms of like, oh well, why does Xenon save him? But I think it's more Xenon based rather than like devil based.
Yeah.
So him saving his like quote unquote brother.
Right, but then it could also end up being like back to like they just need his magic to make sure the advent is actually happening. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And just
exactly.
Oh man, I was gonna say something off what you said, and I completely forgot. Fuck. Oh, so in Greek lore, I've got it tatted on me too. There's a Triskelion. You know what that is?
No, I don't. A Triskelion?
Yeah. So it's like it's 3 legs, and in some interpretations they have like circles and stuff like that. The meaning of that is all those legs are going towards the same motion. So when you treat it like a wheel, it's going to go on forever. All right. So it's not like 2 legs running; it's 3 legs running. So.
Oh, I just looked at. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay. So then you put that inwards, like the dark one would be where they're working against each other and creating feuds to kind of support your point. Where all 3 of them are fighting against each other. Where, let's say, Astaroth is going for like the betterment of the humans, whereas Belial is going for Lucifer's spot, and Lucifer is just trying to counteract Belial because he wants his spot, and then he also just,
gotcha.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of turning inwards.
No, yeah, I like that because they're not really they're not against each other necessarily. It's just they have their own agenda.
Right.
Yeah, no, I like that.
And that'd be dope if we see it at a very human level with the triad.
Which that actually makes a lot of sense because that fits a lot of devil lore and like what they do necessarily, because it's a lot of independent I don't give a fuck about what you're doing. It's about what I think, and nothing else matters. And I'm gonna mess with the laws of nature, and no one can tell me anything about it. Even if, like, even Lucifuge doing, like, even if he's under Lucifer, he doesn't really care. You know, like, anyone that's under anyone else, they see themselves as a leader.
Right.
They don't really care about anything else. So it fits. I mean, no, I like that.
Yeah, and I'm thinking at some point they're going to get into some knockdown blowout fights, and ultimately everyone's going to have to go overseas to kind of avoid this shit.
See, and that's a whole other aspect, because, like, what the hell do they mean overseas? Like,
that's where Jotunheim is. Just saying.
Yeah, but, like, technically, I'm trying to remember what Jotunheim is actually connected to, because I think, okay, so, like,
those are devils.
How well versed are you in Jotunheim? I don't think is always connected to, like, giants aren't always associated with devils.
No,
because sometimes it's Muspelheim, and, like, sometimes it kind of depends on where you're looking.
So,
but in terms of Jotunheim, I thought was connected to Asgard, because, you know, like, the whole, like, each, like, I kind of referenced it earlier, but, like, each guard had like a boundary around it, because it was trying to contain it, and then outside of that guard was other realms, and I'm trying to remember, like, Midgard had other stuff around it, just like Asgard.
You have Midgard, and below Midgard you have you do have Jotunheim, you do have Helheim, and
well, they I want to say in traditional Norse, I thought some of them were actually connected, and it wasn't always like 9 distinct realms. Like Asgard was actually, like, if you went further past, like, the boundary of Asgard, I think you got to Jotunheim. But I'm trying to remember the lore. But I haven't read it in years. I mean, it's been like 10 years since I've read Norse.
I'll say this.
Go back and read it.
I'll say this.
Had me reading a bunch of shit.
I'll say this to what you were saying earlier, and of course, Broku is definitely the guy to go to for the, like, Jotun stuff. But as far as I understand, no, Jotuns are not always considered devils or anything like that. But it's not a matter of them being born a devil or anything. It's just a matter of intent at that point. So if they're going for not the greater good, they're considered a Jotun who's a devil. Then you have Jotun, I think Loki is considered a Jotun. Not Loki, sorry. Odin, considered a Jotun, who was...
I think Loki is Jotun.
Okay, if he is, then he would be considered one of those.
I'm fairly certain that Odin is the Aesir. And Loki is... I can't remember if full Jotun or half Jotun. I want to say he's full Jotun, but it gets kind of tricky because it kind of differs.
I get so mixed up between, like, Odin, Thor, and stuff like that. So if it's not one, it's the other. But then you also have Jotun, who are like the world snake, not
Jormungandr?
Yeah, that one. That's a Jotun.
Yeah,
so, and he's not classified as really either one. He's just got a specific job, and that's it. So Jotun really can be a really vague term as well as a very specific term, as well as dwarves as well. They don't have a stated size. They might be smaller than usual, but they can also be average height or a little bit bigger.
Yes. And, like, even their realm, the dwarf realm, I was going to send you this earlier because we, like I said, we just started talking about this, but the dwarf realm is, like, it's mentioned in the Old Norse, like in the Poetic Edda, as something, and then, like, in the Prose Edda, it's something else. I want to say I think it's Svartalheim is one, and then the other one is something else. But it has to do... I'm trying to remember. God, it's been years. But yeah, you're exactly right. That it's very... Like, they can be detailed very differently depending on your source.
Yeah. This is something we were just talking about earlier, too. Derek said, if you look at certain Asmodeus lore, he matches Xenon to a T. Oh, wait! Was that you that one did? No, it wasn't. It was someone else. Because you're talking about Xenon possibly being half succubus, or in this case, he'd be half Lilith or incubus and half human, right? Yeah, I don't know.
So the some of the symbols. So I think there's a few questions about Megicula being Moloch. So I think if you try to so like Moloch symbol is a bull, the symbol of the black bulls. I've played with the idea that like Libe was actually potentially Moloch on the side of. So Jack has played with the idea that he's Satan. I've played with the idea that he's actually Moloch, and I've played with the idea because of the whole child sacrifice thing. But on the other side of the coin, like he became the devil of child sacrifice after the fact. And then as well as the bull symbol. So I've actually looked at that as well. But I think if you try to attribute, there was a few things I can't remember exactly. I think especially with our future kind of video that we're going to go into, he fits much better into the Satan aspect. I think you and I have talked about this, Jack, that the potential that they might roll Xenon's devil out as like Satan, Beelzebub, Moloch even, and like he knows that Asta is a threat right off the bat because he's like, oh shit, I know that guy, and like he knows him right from the get-go, and that's why he wasn't playing games. But I don't know, it's a valid thought for sure, and I've played with the idea, but I think currently I don't know if we want to base our whole theory on the sense of, because I think the whole like child sacrifice thing is one bit of a stretch. And so I think it's kind of hard in terms of building theories, because if you build on a stretch, then it's one of those things that, like we were talking to Joski earlier, where we were like, oh, like if you start, it's almost like throwing someone in the middle of the ocean. They're like, what the fuck is going on? It's hard to understand where you got to the point, because if you tell someone point Z, you have to explain point A to B to C to D, all the way through to Z. Meanwhile, if you just drop in the middle of the ocean, they don't really know what the hell went on. So exactly. I do potentially agree with you, and we will play with that idea, I think, going forward, especially I will, because I like the idea.
See,
but
so Darth Goku put this comment in here, and I'm going to tell you how you can always reach. I'm not saying you're reaching, by the way, Goku, but I'm just saying what it's like coming up with these theories. I can always reach something and make it make sense. So like, you put Moloch's symbol as a bull, the symbol of the black bulls is a bull, foreshadowing that Noah has been cursed by nature. Okay, so Moloch's symbol is a bull, and the symbol of the black bulls is a bull. But the symbol of the black bulls is also significant in the fact that it looks like ovaries, and ovaries create. So the black bulls are creating out of darkness and coming into light. You can always stretch something. You know what I mean? So you can always run around with all these theories, but this is the beauty of this series. It can go anywhere, and it can also it's a linear story that can pretty much go anywhere Tabata wants it to go. He's got free reign, but you always have to keep an open mind with this series, especially with magic involved, right? But yeah, I'm gonna do like a few more chats. I have to go at some point.
Yeah, I'm about to, because I have to get up tomorrow too.
Oh,
I have experiments that I have to run.
I'll read a few more of these comments though. So another one from Goku was Libe might be Belial, the opposite of Dot. You can kind of spell out Belial by rearranging the letters of Libe's. Yeah, you kind of can. Okay. Yeah, it actually
about that.
Yeah, it actually fits because there's other spellings where it's Belial, so that kind of works. The thing about Dot though is you'd be the gatekeeper of the underworld, and I don't know if that fits Libe at all.
Yeah, the Dot I feel like gets super complicated real quick. Now I know that they kind of teased it with the whole like Shadow Palace thing, and that's where was, and like that actually would kind of fit into your theory in the sense of like it would mirror type of thing.
Yeah.
Because was his gem was at the Shadow Palace, which was if I remember correctly, was at where Dot is in the Sephiroth. It wasn't at like any of the current separate. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of fits. I like that aspect.
Yeah.
But it's kind of wild.
Yeah. You think? Oh, okay. So this was the point of Goku's comment earlier. Was you think Magicula might be Moloch? Magicula might go by many names, and Moloch is their true name, but people can't say it because they'll get cursed immediately. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think for sure he has a different name. He or she has a different name. I think that's kind of assumed with the whole, like, what they've been teasing. You know, like, we talked about it earlier, like, what's the writing on the wall?
You know, Goku, I'll reinforce your theory with my own crack, okay? So, we know about Magicula, they steal babies, right? And what is Moloch known for? Is for sacrificing children. Child sacrifice. So, I mean,
what you have to do to own property in the West Coast.
Look, man, y'all wilding right now. Okay, but yeah, I mean, I think that could hold some weight as far as what we know about Magicula. I wouldn't completely rule it out, but I also think it would be kind of underwhelming considering what we've seen from Vanicula and all that.
Well, I also think it's kind of assumed at this point that she's not part of the top 3.
Yeah. Well, okay, so
I think
that's a thing though. Those aren't the top 3. Those are the pillars that hold up Moloch and Satan.
See, this is where me and you kind of differ just a bit.
I think that is where we differed.
And it might be that the Thaumael is for sure not included, but it might be one of the 3. Because what's the unholy trinity is Lucifer, Belial, and Astaroth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you make a valid point. Then what the fuck would be the twins? Because it would have to be like, okay, let's entertain the idea that Liebe is Satan. Mm-hmm. Then what the fuck would be the mirror of anti-magic?
I think we're thinking about it the wrong way, because they wouldn't necessarily be a mirror, but contending forces. So we have something that
creation almost.
But creating what would be the question, right?
Yeah, but like I'm just trying to think about like what he's building these like contrasting forces with each of his whole twin aspects.
And what contrasts against anti-magic is what you're saying?
Yes, that's my thought.
Yeah,
because he's built this aspect with multiple times. That every single, like, we even see it with this light shadow. Even whenever we said, oh, Morgan shouldn't be a light mage, he should be, you know, a lot of people are saying like cloud magic or sun magic or like I don't even know what, but there were a lot of stuff that there would be some type of variant. But he's very keen on the whole aspect of selling a dichotomy.
Yeah.
So if he was part of the true twin gods that ruled the Qliphoth, all of it, everything, I think that there would be a dichotomy involved. Or even if you're saying a contending force, what the f*** would be the contending force of anti-magic?
More anti-magic, more cowbell.
It's a more powerful anti-magic. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
That would be the fun idea to play with.
Well, then, okay. You have a theory, though. This is one of the ones that gave you a lot of traction. Was it's not actually anti-magic. It's anti-matter, right? Yeah.
So I actually got someone the other day that I think they put a link in it, so I erased the comment. So I'll kind of give some background on this. So I'm a chemist. I'm not a particle physicist. I found this. Someone quoted me in this thing, and they sent it to me that this. So obviously, whenever you go into a lab, they have this. They have these what you look for in a lab in terms of like, oh, this reagent is going to cause like caustic burns to yourself. To yourself, if you put sodium hydroxide on yourself, it's going to cause burns. Now, antimatter is a fairly new concept, and no one's producing antimatter in high amounts, even at like CERN. They're just producing it at like nanosecond ranges, and it just gets rid of itself. But this guy named like Sandberg, he has a PhD or something, I don't remember. But he essentially thought of like, oh, well, if we make these symbols, then later on we should have these thoughts of, as we create these like otherworldly aspects, one of them being antimatter, this is something that like these symbols could represent. Now, this has kind of been referenced in like pop culture. It's even been like an Xbox achievement in one of the fucking games that I haven't got to. But it's it referenced like it was an antimatter achievement, and so that's why I said and I explained it that like even the light, whenever he activated his devil union, represented like the whole like particle bombardment of like antimatter to matter creates like the collision of of matter and antimatter creates just essentially like light. And so that's what potentially that big light cascade was whenever he was fighting with Nox. So that's what Jack is referencing.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of are you talking about what could go against that, or what could be the opposite of that?
Yeah.
So, are we talking about like the creation of matter? Because that would be nuts. Or like, I thought about potentially, I try to fit this, okay, I try to piece this together. Dark matter versus antimatter. Now, I thought about if he was trying to piece it together as in like matter is what we have in the universe, dark matter was what we had in the underworld, and antimatter was what Asta had. And like Asta was fucking on everything because he had antimatter that was just essentially annihilating everything.
Right.
However, antimatter and dark matter don't really interact. So that didn't really explain the whole aspect of him being able to like annihilate the devils. So I didn't put out a video about that. But I tried to explain that like scientifically.
Wait.
But I couldn't quite.
So you're saying it doesn't make sense to you that antimatter would be able to defeat devils?
In the sense of scientifically, because antimatter does not affect dark matter. Because I thought it would.
So in
the sense, in the headcanon of like, what if antimatter both took out matter and dark matter? But it doesn't.
Okay, so let me present this then. So everything physical pretty much has to have matter, correct?
What was that? I was reading something while you said that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not important. No, I'm just kidding. So everything physical has matter, correct?
Yes.
So even if it is something like fire where it seems intangible, it's still matter. It still has matter to it, which can ultimately be broken apart. It would take a lot more work, of course, for something like fire, but you can still ultimately break it apart. So I don't think it's a stretch to think that he could defeat devils. Now, I had a post way back talking about Yami's true magic type, because I didn't think it was dark magic, and when you brought this up, there's a scene in Dante versus Yami and Asta where Asta bounces back the dark magic, but his sword is cloaked in the anti-magic or antimatter for all intents and purposes, and it didn't break it apart.
Yes.
Right? So this kind of goes towards your point, and maybe Yami's magic could be misclassified like Gray's was, but who knows?
Yeah, that'd be a good point. I mean, that'd be a dope concept.
Yeah. You want to take any other comments before you head out?
John said, "I'm a scientist, not a doctor." Yeah, that's basically me. I'll tell you when I don't know something, man.
Bro,
Straight up.
You guys, like, before anything, make sure you do subscribe to WK. I put the link in the chat. It's probably way drowned out, but it's just Wizard King Minato. He's also on Twitter. Go follow him. Dude, I mean, honestly, if you're on this channel and you do legitimately like my ideas, you'll probably like his just as much, if not more. Because this dude's actually like a scientist. Like, he was just injecting mice with stuff today. Like anti-coronavirus stuff. So
it was nanoparticles, but yeah.
So I mean, he actually, like, the antimatter video that he put out. If you guys see that, that was him. Like, Dude, I was so mad someone tried posting that without like giving you credit. I was like, don't. Hopefully you get ratioed when I do this. Yeah. If you see that, that was him who brought that up, and that was he sold me on that. So I mean, definitely be sure, please support the boy. You'll probably see him on the channel again when and if I do this again. So definitely do that. But yeah, did you have any other comments you want to take on here?
I'll just quickly go down it. Buzzard said, Asta's unit eye mode look like antimatter symbol. Yeah, that was kind of my previous post. If you go to my, I have it on my TikTok, but also my YouTube. That's one of the 4 videos I actually have. The John says, it sounds like chaos theory. So yes, that actually plays into the video that Jack and I will be coming out with soon. So, but that's actually one of the videos that I have is about the chaos theory. So, that's coming. Fire be energy rather than matter.
That still has matter though.
So what it's giving off is energy, but technically it's like creating, it's like oxidizing what's in it. So that could be a whole conversation in itself. But, thanks for the follow, everybody. I'm getting stuff that you guys are following me, but it's not needed. I don't know what you're talking about ratioed, but whatever. Even if I just talk on this.
Yeah, I was when I was talking about that one person trying to post your video without giving you credit. I was trying to ratio them.
Oh. Yeah, I mean honestly, it's just kind of how the way things go. I don't take this too super serious. Like I said, I like talking to Jack about stuff and just having fun, and it's kind of what I do. So I appreciate everybody kind of hanging out, and it was fun. Honestly, I didn't know where the hell Jack and I were going to, but somehow we got to the finish line.
Hey, that's it. That's all that matters. That's what I tell my girlfriend all the time. Hey, it may not have lasted long, but we got to the end, didn't we?
Oh God.
All right, so you guys, again, if you haven't done it, be like John, follow WK, please, or I will come hunt you down, ratio you like they did Sammy the other day, and not J Cloud, and yeah, you guys don't want this. You don't want this smoke. I swear to God, you don't. But
yeah, it was fun. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah,
it was fun.
WK, definitely looking forward to putting out that video. I think it's going to blow everyone's minds, because when you sent that to me, I was like, dude, this guy did not just send the most groundbreaking evidence to just debunk Asta completely. And yeah, that was probably one of the more enjoyable rabbit holes I found, and that was all thanks to you. So I can't wait till we formulate that video. But yeah,
for sure.
I appreciate you having me on. It's my channel. I appreciate you coming on. And thank you guys, everyone in the chat, for being super respectful. I didn't see any negative comments about WK's theories or anything he had to say, and that's super dope. And that's what I like about this part of the community, is that you guys are super supportive like that. So show that same love to WK on his channel. And yeah, any last words?
No, I appreciate it. I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
I don't have a lot of videos, but I'm hoping to get some more. So
you need a catchphrase, because then you got to do. This has been Jack OATz to go. Thank you guys for tuning in. You guys are the best.
I need something.
Find me on Twitter, maybe, and on here with your thoughts. Tell us your theories. This has been Jack OATz to go and WK.